Important to connect what's going on with Juneteenth to what's happening in our community and also what's in Dr. Claude Anderson's books, who I consider to be the original Juneteenther. He is the king of Juneteenth. He's Kingteenth or something, right? He's the man, and he says hello. By the way, I talked to Dr. Anderson today. He's feeling stronger. I don't see him making a lot of public appearances in the future, however, but he does send his blessings and his regards. And as I told you all, I've been teaching this class for 5 years now, approximately something like that. And by the way, if you go to Dr. Boyce Book Club, I think it's drboycebookclub.com, if that's it. Yeah, you can get all the recordings of every single training that we've done. So feel free to do that. But I wouldn't be teaching this class if it wasn't for him saying it's okay to do that. If he said it's not okay to use the name Powernomics in the title, I would not be doing that. So he sends his blessings and his regards, and also he sends his appreciation and his respect for the fact that you are the last line of defense for the Black community. You are the people that are pushing for intelligence over ignorance. You are pushing for unity over division. You are pushing for progress over backwardness. And there's a whole lot of shenanigans out here, a whole lot of ridiculousness, because a lot of times we don't know our history, right? We don't know historically when we see ourselves engaging in weird, strange, and obviously humiliating ways. There's not a historical context that allows us to understand, why this buffoonery might be so common, why the shenanigans just continue. So this is one of the reasons why it's important to read books from our elders who can tell us the things that we need to know. A lot of times, and I'll tell you this, when you talk about economics, and you guys know I'm not a financial influencer at all, I'm a financial scientist. That's my goal. The science pretty much tells me that when you look at Black wealth growth and shrinkage, a lot of your answers lie before integration, not after integration. Integration didn't really do a whole lot to put you in a better economic position. Integration actually moved you backwards. So with that being said, there's a lot that we can all learn here in terms of knowing how to make ourselves better and stronger in this new environment. Now, give me a quick yes if you can hear me. Okay, let me know if you can hear me and my audio's coming through. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start reading from Dr. Claude Anderson's book. We've been reading this book for probably about a year now. We read a little bit every week. I almost want to do this class more than once a week or something. I'm going to think about that. We already do Money in the Morning, our economic elevation every morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. That is 7 days a week. So if you aren't invited to Money in the Morning, where we do financial consciousness training, it's an amazing class. Anybody who's in there, just say something in the chat so people will know, like, this is not BS. If you want to join us, just text the word morning to 87948. Text morning to 87948, or you can go to drboyceelevate.com if you live in another country. And this book is called The Black History Reader. The Black History Reader, and the website you can get a copy of Dr. Anderson's book is powernomics.com. So please go to powernomics.com, support this man and his amazing work. A lot of people are sort of willing to say that they support things, but they don't really support. And a lot of other communities, you look in the Jewish and Asian communities, Indian communities, etc., they support things by writing checks for the things that they believe in. Right? Money is power, and we write lots of checks. We spend lots of money. We are among the biggest consumers in the entire planet. The problem is, though, that because we did not learn that money is power, we give our power to people who don't love us. We'll write a check for massa before we write a check for somebody that's really trying to do something good for us. So I encourage you to be very conscious. This is a good exercise in financial consciousness, to target your money to the people that are going to benefit you, right? That's what you do. That's what I do with my money. When I'm spending money, I'm always thinking, if I give this person my money, is that going to boomerang? Is that going to come back to the places and the people and the situations that I value? Is that going to ultimately benefit me, or is that going to just benefit somebody else? So keep that in mind as you spend your money and you make your decisions. All right. So powernomics.com, that's the website. Now we're going to turn into page 147. And this is where Dr. Anderson's going to talk about an aspect of Juneteenth that does not get discussed. They never discuss this when Juneteenth comes up, but they need to talk about it. First off, let me ask you a simple question. Let's just do a quick review. How many of you believe that Black people deserve reparations? Give me a yes if you agree. that it's time to pay reparations. Give me a guess if you agree that we are owed for slavery, we are owed for Jim Crow, we are owed for the Middle Passage, we are owed for all the trauma, we are owed for everything you stole, we're owed for all the trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars that were taken from us. We are owed for so many things. I'm owed for the fact that my daddy was on drugs because y'all put drugs in the black community. I'm owed for the fact that I had too many relatives that went to your prison or your concentration camps called penitentiaries, and it affected my life, right? I'm owed for the fact that I had to deal with the trauma of having friends get killed, like my homeboy Greg Wilkins, who got shot in the head in front of his daughter in 1996, right after Tupac died in my hometown of Louisville, Kentucky, just a few blocks from where Breonna Taylor died, right? So a lot of us are, oh, these are the butterfly effects. These are the ripple effects that occur when you have a community that's been stolen from, abused, and neglected for such a very long time. You owe us that money. You cannot be my friend until you pay what you owe. You can't. You cannot get my support politically. I'm not telling you who to vote for. I want to make that clear. I do not tell people who to vote for, and I do not give investing advice. But I do openly tell you what I'm going to do. And the reality is that you do not get my vote until you show me that you respect me enough to acknowledge what I went through and fix it. If you can't fix it, then forget it. Right? You send $100 billion to Ukraine and Israel. Well, you better send the next 100 billion to us. Well, really, it's more than 100 billion, but that will be a nice little down payment to kind of get us started so we can fund some black-owned businesses and quit those damn jobs. Because one of the things that you have to understand, and this is, I think it's important to couch this within what's going on with Juneteenth. Juneteenth is today, so let's talk about Juneteenth. So Juneteenth, we know the history. Juneteenth down in Galveston it is a celebration, a recognition of the fact that they took two more years of free labor from us after the Emancipation Proclamation had been signed, and so the slaves down in Texas did not know that they had been freed, and so finally General Granger, I believe that's his name, comes down to Galveston. He tells everybody, "Hey, y'all can go home now. Y'all ain't got to keep working," and so we were free. So to this day, we celebrate Juneteenth. Juneteenth is basically a blend of the words June and 19th. So it's Juneteenth. June 19th, that's the day before my birthday, actually. I'll be 53 years old tomorrow. Actually, but I prefer to think of it as the 18th celebration of my 35th birthday. So wish me a happy 35th, and that'll make me feel better. All right. So with that being said, though, so this is Juneteenth, right? So Juneteenth to me is a celebration of what? A celebration of freedom, right? We got our freedom, right? We're free. We's free, y'all. Right? We don't have to work for massa no more, right? We have freedom. Okay, so I have to ask you a basic question, a basic fundamental question, and I'm gonna lay it out like this. How many of you believe that most black people are free? How many of y'all believe black people are free? I mean, really, what do you think? Do you think that we just do what we want, say what we want without fear, just move how we want, get up in the morning and do what we want that day? How many of y'all believe black people are free? I mean, it's Juneteenth. I mean, if you're having some of y'all have Juneteenth barbecues and you had the hot dogs and the hamburgers and the ribs and all that stuff. We ain't supposed to eat, but it's okay. I like barbecue too. Don't tell my friends that the friends I love with the Nation of Islam though. They probably get on me because they did make some, but I think they were like those beef hot dogs, so that's not as bad. So we don't be doing the pork. All right. So anyway, but still though, right? So if you're celebrating Juneteenth, then that obviously means you're free. That right? You have freedom. So why I don't understand what's going on. Oh, I get it. I know that's Dr. Claude Anderson was telling us one day when he came in, he said that if I'm not mistaken, he said that in 1862, 98.5% of all black people we're not going to say, we're going to talk about white people because they get, that makes people nervous if I'm on a public channel. I mean, I'm double streaming on YouTube, so I don't want to get us banned. So let's call it massa. So in 1862, 98.5% of you work for massa. And in 2024, 98.5% of you work for massa. So here's the thing. Here's the thing. I didn't celebrate Juneteenth because I feel like I'd be a fraud if I did. And the reason that I'd be a fraud is because the idea that we were free after the end of slavery is a false idea. I don't think we're free yet. I don't think Juneteenth has actually arrived. Juneteenth has not arrived. Juneteenth will arrive when you're truly free. Some of you are free. Some of you are. I meet some of you. Some of you are doing well. Some of you do what you want. You have plenty of resources. You're doing okay. Some of us, we still have a ways to go. And I'm not here to judge what position on the stratosphere you are. I'm just here to kind of talk about that because I think that in order for us to really have a serious Juneteenth conversation, we have to realize that it's time for the barbecue to come to an end. It's time for us to stop all the celebrating and buck dancing over Juneteenth. I'm not saying you can't celebrate. I'm not saying you can't have a good time that day, but I think you need to really understand just where we really are and what we're trying to really do. So when you're talking about freedom, freedom means that you are free. Also, slavery doesn't mean that you're not getting paid. There are plenty of high paid slaves in this society. Slavery pretty much means that you don't get to do what you want to do. Slavery means that somebody else is deciding your fate. Slavery means somebody else is controlling your destiny. Slavery means you wake up in the morning and when you look and you say, gosh, these are the things I want to do today, and you can't because someone else is saying, no, we need you over here. You need to do these things. You need to spend your whole day in a factory, not with your kids, not at the gym, not sleeping in, not living life. You need to come do what master says. Because if you don't, the consequences are devastating. You will not be able to pay your rent. You will not be able to feed your children. You will not be able to you won't be able to put gas in your car. You won't be able to do anything. You can't live if you don't do what we say. So, with that being said, I think that's an important conversation to start having on Juneteenth is the economic conversation because we know that we're not economically free. Reparation slides into that conversation because we know that some of this slavery is socially constructed. Slavery is a social construct. That is social engineering. They engineered society to make sure that your Juneteenth never arrives. The society is engineered in such a way that it is nearly impossible for anyone, black, white, or otherwise, to be free if you don't have access to some economic resources. When they issued the Emancipation Proclamation, one of the first things they did during Reconstruction was they said, "How in the hell can these people be free when they ain't got nothing? You can't be free if you ain't got nothing." So what they did was they said they did the right thing. They tried to do the right thing, kind of. They said we're going to give every slave, uh, uh, a mule, 40 acres, and $100. That would and back then $100 went a long way, right? I guess I imagine it's a few $1,000. I don't know what $100 was in 1865, but it was a whole lot more than it is now. Now you can't buy a pack of gum for $100, but back then it was good. Okay, so they wanted to give every freed slave 40 acres, a mule, and $100 because they said now you're truly free. It's like our kids. We tell our teenage kids you're free to do whatever you want, but then they end up doing what we tell them to do. Why? Well, because we got all the money. Because they know that they can't go and do what they want if they don't have resources. So when they come to us and they say, "I'm mad because you won't do whatever, and I want to do this and I want to do that," and I say, "Fine, do whatever you want. Just know I will not financially support anything that you do because I'm the king and that's the queen and we control all the resources. We are the federal government in this house. But you're free to do whatever you want. Please go ahead. You're free to go to the movies without a car. You're free to go shopping with no money in your pocket. You're free. You can go, in fact, you can go get you an apartment, but I know how much apartments cost. So I know you ain't going nowhere. You're going to go to your room. So basically, you can't have freedom in America without resources. You have to have resources. So we know our children will never be free until they learn how to make their own money. That's it. So either they're gonna have to learn how to make their own money, or we're just gonna have to give them enough money to do whatever they want to do. One of the two things are gonna happen. It cannot be something where they think that freedom can happen just magically because somebody says you're free. No, you can't be free without money. So in a way, you can think about it like this: with black people, you've kind of got a couple of types of us. Really, you got those that really are fighting to be free, and then you got those who just kind of think that they're free. And I'm not making fun of any group in any category. I'm not making fun of anybody. You got a lot of people that think that they're free and they think that they're being black and they think they understand what blackness looks like because they connect it to silly stuff like dancing and hairstyles and whether or not you eat barbecue chicken at grandma's house and stuff like that. And then you got people that really understand how serious this game is. And so what I really am hoping I can persuade you of is that In order for you to really have the freedom that you're attempting to obtain, you're kind of in a situation that's similar to the kids in this house. To some extent, Massa is like our daddy. He's our sugar daddy. He's our parent. And basically, just like I, as the parent of the kids in this house, and my wife as the parent of the kids in this house, we make the rules. So, in order for the kids to be free, they're going to have to learn to make their own money. They're going to have their own resources. So, the question I would ask anybody who really wants to know what freedom looks like in America in a capitalist society where money rules everything, cash rules everything around me, right? In that society, in order for you to be free, you got to learn how to make your own money. Are you learning how to make your own money? Is that your plan? Is that something that you're aiming for? Because I can tell you, as a financial scientist, that the way you've been trained to think about freedom is entirely and completely wrong. The way you've been trained to think about freedom is entirely incorrect. The way you've been trained to think about freedom is wrong, and I can prove to you why. I want you to look around and see how many people you see with advanced degrees and fancy jobs making $100,000 a year who still don't feel free. How in the hell is it that you got the bachelor's, you got the master's, you got the PhD, you got the law degree, and you went to college, you went to Brown University and got every degree that you could get, and you still don't feel free? Well, I think part of it is because we never learned what freedom really looks like. We don't know the financial security aspect of freedom. Who was I talking to about that today? I was talking to somebody. I was meeting with a student that so many thoughts go through my head. Oh, I know what it was. I know what it was. I was talking to a guy who's an investment advisor to a lot of very wealthy athletes and entertainers. That's what it was. And he runs a company out in LA. These are the brothers you never meet. He's a young guy, about 38 years old, managing millions of dollars very quietly. He's not loud and flashy like a rapper. He's just quietly accumulating tens of millions of dollars in his family trust. And we were talking about how there are so many people who get caught in these crazy traps in society because they don't even understand how vulnerable they actually are. They don't really understand what true freedom actually looks like, and they mistake it for a high income, or they think that because they drive a certain car or live in a certain house, or because white folks put you on TV, that somehow that means you're powerful and that you're free. And then what happens is when something goes wrong and when they decide that they're done with you, or they decide they want to kick you flat in your ass, they do that publicly and they spank you in public so that everybody sees it, just to remind you who's really in control. Just to remind you that you thought you had grown up. You thought Pinocchio was a real boy. And no, Pinocchio was never a real boy. Pinocchio had a puppet master named Geppetto who had his arm up his ass the entire time. So whenever Pinocchio was talking, he thought that those words were coming from his own brain, and they weren't. They were coming from Geppetto's brain. Geppetto was the one moving his lips, and Pinocchio just had somebody up his butt and just pulling the strings. And to some extent, I think that this is one of the problems that we have. I think that we celebrate Juneteenth and we celebrate all the progress that we've made, which we have made some progress. I'm not going to pretend like we haven't, but we celebrate it as if we've arrived, right? As if there's so many things to be so happy about. And I would say this to you, another sign of freedom, in my opinion, is when you have the ability to solve your own problems. That's another sign of freedom. That's another symptom of what I refer to in my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, as economic maturity. So I want to ask you another question. I want you to give me a yes or no. Do you believe that the Black community is a community that has shown a consistent ability to solve its own problems? Like when we have violence in our neighborhoods, are we the ones who just stamp it out? Or do we wait for somebody else to do it? Or when we have an economic problem and our money's a little bit short, do we have the ability to do it? Or do we wait for somebody else? If we don't like something that's happening, I don't know, in the entertainment industry, right? When you got rappers that pop up out of nowhere like Sexy Red, just literally debasing the image of Black women around the world. Are we the ones that are able to kind of control and manage that? Yes or no? Now I'm going to ask you another question. Let's talk about another community, right? And the ones who the one that community, it starts with a J. We're not going to say it because I ain't trying to get in trouble with YouTube. But they're really good with money. They tend to own TV networks and radio stations and record labels. If they don't like an artist, do they have the ability to pretty much delete that artist? If they don't like something in their neighborhood, yes or no? If they don't like something in their neighborhood, do they have the ability to fix that problem? If they don't like something that's happening politically, do they have the ability without voting to fix that issue? Can they, if they want more money sent over to Israel, $100 billion so they can buy bombs and stuff, can they get that done? Are they able to pick up the phone and make it happen? Yes or no? Okay, okay. So here's I'm gonna lay this out for you, and I need all the stupid people to get out of the room. Everybody who just ain't trying to get it, just please don't come. Stop it. We're gonna have to kick you in your head and push you out because I ain't got time for you right now. I'm like Harriet Tubman. I'm about to pull out the shotgun if you ain't got no sense. Um, I need you to process this for a moment, please. And this is something I'm closing my eyes on because I want to make sure I say it right. I personally think that you should take note of the fact that as these elections are coming up, and everybody's telling you that voting is your only chance to improve your situation, I need you to go look at those communities that either that may vote, may not vote, but it doesn't matter if they vote. They're still going to have power. I need you to look at that community I just described to you that doesn't even have enough people to influence the vote. They can't tip the vote. And I want you to process for a moment, how in the hell is it that we feel like that we have to vote or die? You remember when Diddy used to say, if you don't vote, you're going to die. For us, it's vote or die. For them, it's like, yeah, voting, whatever. That's not how we actually make things move. How is it that they will have more power than you? What is it that they're thinking that you're not thinking? What, this is a financial consciousness moment. This is a money meditation. I need you to meditate on this. How in the hell is it that they can move mountains, whether they vote or not? But they got you on this whole vote or die nonsense. I'm not telling you not to vote. Please don't do that because I don't want to hurt nobody's feelings or disrupt your sensitivities. I know your grandma told you that you had to vote or bad things are going to happen, and I understand that. I respect that. We ain't going to disrespect grandma today, but I really need you to think about that. Do you know why they're able to control their fate? Do you know why they actually have freedom? And we just kind of have the illusion of freedom. Do you know why they can fix problems in their community and we can't? What do you think that it is that they're focused on that we're not focused on that makes the difference? It's money. Money, power, respect is the key to life. Money, power, respect. Have you eaten right? Cash moves everything around me. Cream, get the money. Dollar, dollar bill, y'all. It's all about the economics, people. It's all about the economics. And I'm gonna duck my head because I want you to look behind me. Those three men behind me, they've been saying that for over 100 years. Consistently, if you listen to Dr. Claude Anderson, listen to Malcolm X, you listen to Marcus Garvey, all three of these men, and many, many others, they're not the only ones, have said, if you get your economics right, you will have access to your Juneteenth. That is when you can really go to the barbecue, eat good, and sleep good afterward. That is when you can really celebrate something because then that's when you have the ability to move mountains in your own life. And what I'm going to propose is that the model is not a national model. It is not a model where everybody gets on the same boat and does the same thing. I don't even know how to do that. I don't know how to get every Black person on the same page. I'm not trying to do that. What I'm arguing is that Black leadership needs to be decentralized. Everybody in here is a Black leader. Everybody has an assignment. So I'm not asking you to free the whole Black community or to liberate everybody. Some people, some of them want to go get on the slave ship. Some of them enjoy riding the slave ship. They getting tans. They chilling on the slave ship. They got a martini on the slave ship. Let them stay there. Some of y'all got relatives that want to stay on the slave ship. Let them stay there. But when it comes to you and yours, I hope that I've made a clear case to you that if you get your economics right, then you really will get a taste of what freedom truly feels like. Freedom is kind of simple. In fact, freedom is so simple that even animals know what freedom looks like. An animal knows the difference between being free and being in a cage. A dog knows the difference between being able to run through the woods versus being on a leash. He knows he likes to be free. He don't want to be locked up. Once he's had freedom, he doesn't go back. So freedom is not complicated. You know what it feels like when you're free. You know, we talk about stock options a lot, but also we talk about options a lot because options are just like freedom. Options means I can do whatever I want. So when you're in a position where you can do whatever you want, then that is when you are free. When you are in a position where you have options, that is when you are free. Chris Rock said once, I remember, that money gets you options. Even crazy ass Kanye West, I remember him saying something like, "Wait till I get my money right, nah, 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 can't nobody tell me nothing." And let me tell you, sitting on the phone with Kanye for all those hours that we did during the convention, because he called right during the convention. I don't know if somebody told him what we were doing or what, but I can tell you, he clearly is a man that knows he has hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank and he can do whatever he wants. I'm not mad at him for that at all. Okay, so what I'm saying to you overall is that for in your case, it's basic tenets of economic security such that if you follow those basic rules, you can be in a position where you can actually have a Juneteenth for yourself. It doesn't matter what everybody else is doing. I mean, sure, freedom is more fun when you have other friends that are free. You know, I used to call my grandma when I started when I joined the faculty at Syracuse. I became a professor because I thought I didn't really think much about entrepreneurship at that time, so I thought the best I could do was get a flexible job. So I had this job where I was making over $100,000 a year and I was able to stay home pretty much every day. I would go to work Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's it. I was a workaholic pretty much, and I would call my grandmother like every other day, like once every 2 or 3 days. All right. And I remember calling her, and I was like, "You're the only other person I know who doesn't have to go to work every day." And so I would call my grandma, right? So freedom is more fun when you have other people around that are in the same space. But generally speaking, you can secure freedom for yourself and for your family by establishing a culture that's built around freedom. And I can tell you that the culture that we have, the one that says, you know, go to school and then go $200,000 in debt in college, and then that way you can maybe get you a $50,000 a year job. That model doesn't work. Most black college graduates can't even pay back their student loans. A lot of black college graduates are going to die in debt. Black college graduates, unfortunately, don't even have the tools, nor the resources, nor the free time, nor the creativity, nor the courage to go build the kind of infrastructure that's required to build a community. And unfortunately, many black college graduates, and I include myself in this group, many of us are trained to be high paid slaves. We're trained to be under the umbrella of a system, controlled and managed by that system, without skills to leave that system, so we can serve that system. So what I've simply argued is, why are you serving another system when you should be serving your own? Where's your system at? What system have you built? What empires are you developing? And are you even taking the chances to make that happen? Do you have the skills to make that happen? Were you raised on the things required for that an entrepreneur or business owner or investor needs to know in order to accumulate wealth? Is your consciousness even on the right radar? Or are you focused on salaries and bonuses and whether or not you get that fancy corner office and or a company car and a corporate credit card and all these other stupid things that they teach us are important? Those things are not important. What's important is what you own and control. It is what you own and what you control. That is what gives you freedom. You look at even a bigot like Elon Musk. I think Elon Musk, it was really funny. Elon Musk just signed a deal with Swizz Beats and and Timberland to do something with Versus on Twitter, right? Which is kind of crazy. Elon Musk is it's crazy that they signed it on Juneteenth and made the announcement on Juneteenth because Elon Musk is he's a racist. He's like an apartheid guy. And now mind you, that doesn't bother me much in the sense that I don't care what white people think about me. I really don't. I don't get offended because a white man doesn't like me. I assume that they don't like me that much because I don't care about them. They don't care about me. It was whatever, right? But it is what it is, right? So anyway, but if you look at Elon Musk, he's kind of a guy that does what he wants to do. And the reason he does what he wants to do is because he's economically free. He owns things, right? So again, rather than sitting around being mad about the fact that he doesn't like you, I hate to break it to you, but he doesn't. Um, I don't care about that. I want to study and understand freedom and what that looks like. So freedom is economics. Economics is freedom. Learn economics. Be careful with debt. Debt is a type of slavery. When people get drowned too much in debt, they have to go to work in order to pay the debt. That's why after the pandemic, they wanted student loan payments to resume because they said people won't come to work if we make them pay their student loans, then they're gonna have to come to work, and we will have the workers that we need. So don't let them back you into slavery. That's pretty much the way capitalist systems are designed. Okay, so that's your Juneteenth conversation for today. Now let's read about what Dr. Anderson says about all the money that they owe you, because I think that's also an important thing to talk about on Juneteenth. Now, just a reminder, don't forget the All Black National Convention is October 25th through the 27th. We have secured Brother Nuri Muhammad as one of our keynotes, who is one of the great Black leaders in this country. We also have Lamar Tyler, who I call the Black Millionaire Maker, who is going to be there as well as a slew of attorneys and real estate experts. Constance Carter, who ran the largest Black real estate firm in California, she's going to be there. And we're going to have a ton of real estate experts and financial experts and therapists and medical doctors and all kinds of people at the convention. So it's going to be right outside Chicago, Lombard, Illinois, October 25th through the 27th. And so if you want to learn more, you can go to allblacknationalconvention.com. That's allblacknationalconvention.com. Also, some of you are going to go to Egypt with us. We're going to Egypt August 2nd or something through the 12th. Now, I would invite you all to go, but the trip is totally sold out. However, we are going to do another trip. So if you'd like to go on the next one, we will let you know when that's going to happen. All right. So let's get started here. All right. So question 47 says, this is page 147 of the book, The Black History Reader by Dr. Claude Anderson, powernomics.com is where you can get a copy. He says, did Black Americans receive the same economic benefits as whites in Franklin D. Roosevelt's 1930s New Deal? In President Franklin D. Roosevelt's 1932 New Deal program, Black Americans, the people who had suffered the most during the Great Depression, received the least benefits. Surprise, surprise. The stock market crash in 1929 triggered the Great Depression that stalled economies around the world, closed factories and businesses, and brought hard times to everyone's front door. The nation's general unemployment rate was pushed to 25% for whites, which was but it was 2 to 3 times higher for blacks. So they're 25%. We're definitely well above 50, 60, 70%. 1/3 of the nation was ill-fed, ill-housed, and ill-clothed. These conditions propelled Roosevelt, a strong believer in the role and power of the federal government, to campaign for the office of the United States, President of the United States. In his 1932 presidential election campaign, Roosevelt, a Democrat, used rhetoric that gave blacks the impression that he was sympathetic to their economic needs. Roosevelt's slogans expressed a deep concern for the forgotten man and pledged a new deal for the people. Black Americans naturally but erroneously believed the broad terms forgotten man, and the people either referred to or included them. At that time, the majority of blacks belonged to the Republican Party, a continuation of their allegiance to Abraham Lincoln. But in the 1932 election, blacks abandoned the Republican Party and threw their votes to Roosevelt, who won the election with their support. Once in office, Roosevelt and his administration designed a New Deal program for the working class and poor. However, as it turned out, Roosevelt's New Deal did not have blacks in mind. Surprise, surprise. The New Deal did not address the government and culturally imposed reasons blacks were so poverty-stricken in the first place, and provided them only a few low-level jobs, limited healthcare services, and minimal welfare benefits. Within a few short years of implementation of the New Deal, national surveys and social discomfort indicators revealed that in the midst of the Great Depression, economic conditions for blacks grew worse, and the gap between them and whites grew even wider. Eleanor Roosevelt, the wife of Roosevelt, was sympathetic to the conditions of blacks and tried to provide them an entree to her husband. She organized an informal group called the Black Kitchen Cabinet to meet with her and to advise her on black issues, which she presented in her own way to the president. By the 1940s, a significant number of blacks had lost faith in Roosevelt and began to call his New Deal the Dirty Deal. Blacks had experienced a political lesson. Pay attention. He says that in our competitive race-based society, the social construct on race does not allow equal footing. White privilege is structural, and whether conscious or subconscious, the socioeconomic outcomes are foreordained by race. So give me a yes if you follow what was just said here. Dr. Claude Anderson just explained something that I bet none of you learned in school. How many of you learned that in school? Give me a yes if you did not learn this. Let me know if they ignored this and never told you, because this is not the stuff they tell you. They tell you that the New Deal was wonderful for everybody, And it's interesting because they will completely ignore the extreme intense suffering of your great grandparents and what they had to go through, and the fact that they called it the dirty deal, and the fact that they didn't support Roosevelt after this New Deal came out gives the other side of the coin. Right. And this is important, right? There is no such thing as one America. There definitely is the black version of America and the white version of America. And then there are other versions in between. And in fact, I remember when OJ Simpson was acquitted, and that was a stark example of the difference in terms of how whites and blacks see America differently. Though it almost every single city, the black students or black people were cheering and going crazy because they were happy that OJ was acquitted, and the white folks were crying. Like white girls were literally crying, like someone had literally killed one of their relatives, which was so interesting. And I know where my wife and I were, it was the same way. I was at the University of Kentucky at the time. She was at Indiana University, and she was in the Black Student Union. They were just going crazy, and she looked over and saw the white people crying, and I saw the same thing at the University of Kentucky. So there's different realities here, and I think that an understanding of the black reality is really important, because I think that what they try to do is get you to let your guard down and make you think that racism is a thing of the past. They make you think that some other issue outside of blackness is more important. So rather than being black first, they train you to become gay first, or rather than being black first, it's like you're a woman first, or you're whatever it is, right? And my belief is that no, you're black first. Black first means that being black creates a unique experience, such that that unique experience requires unique remedies and unique solutions. And those unique solutions are not just whites versus minorities, it's foundational black Americans, whatever you want to call it, American descendants of slaves, whatever you want to call it. But there are issues specific to those of you who are descendants of slavery that do not belong to anybody else. So that means that any reparations plan has to start there. It has to start there. It has to start there. So, but obviously, that's not going to occur. What's going to happen is whatever the plan is, everybody else is going to jump on board, because I think that there's this inherent feeling amongst other groups that, look, if the black people are getting it, we should get it too. If they're getting it, we should get it first. If I'm a feminist, it's like, well, no, if black people are getting it, then we got to get it. Right? Or how dare you treat us worse than you treat the black people? Like, I think that that's kind of the sentiment and the understanding. And I think it's very important that we fight for whatever it is that we think we deserve. So I'll leave that up to you to decide what that looks like. Now let's go to page 148 of the Black History Reader by Dr. Claude Anderson. This is powernomics.com is his website. I'm repeating that for those of you that just came in. So question 48 is this. This is interesting. This is a great Juneteenth lesson as well, in terms of what's going to be required to fix the economic and social issues that exist in the community. He brings up a World War II style Marshall Plan. He asks question 48, does Black America need a World War II type Marshall Plan? Black Americans entered the 21st century as an impoverished and politically abandoned people, still suffering from socioeconomic pathologies and the legacies of slavery. Astronomically high rates of now let's make note of this. I need us to really meditate on the issues, meditate on the suffering, so you can understand what's going on, so you'll know how important the solution is. Astronomically high rates of unemployment, homicides, failing schools, incarcerations, drug addiction, and dysfunctional families will be made worse by an apathetic majority society that is fixated on supporting immigrants and class minorities. Black America needs a World War II type of urban Marshall Plan to address this dilemma, just as this country invested $12 billion and relocated 300,000 European Jews in the late 1940s to aid Germany's recovery. Even in the fall of 2016, President Barack Obama's administration continued World War II efforts in support of European Jews and approved $24 million for Holocaust survivors in the U.S. living below the national poverty line. While this is a generous gesture, no similar level of concern seems to have been made to relieve the distress of the more than 50% of Black American families who live on incomes below the national poverty line 156 years after slavery officially ended. The protracted problems that Blacks endure today in America are similar in nearly every respect to the conditions in Germany following World War II, conditions which were justified for the aid the U.S. gave to the nation that it had just fought for 4 years. The U.S., so they fought Germany, so Germany is an enemy of the United States, and they did more for them than they did for people in their own country. Isn't that interesting? In fact, does anybody remember when, who was it? Oh gosh, Joe Louis fought Max Schmeling back, I guess, during World War II or around that time. And Joe Louis, he died broke, right? I guess there was some financial management issues kind of going on, and I know that he lost a lot of his boxing years volunteering for the military to prove his patriotism. And as a result, they caused him some IRS problems because they started to tax him in a way that wasn't appropriate and wasn't fair. But one thing I remember reading was that Coca-Cola hired Max Schmeling, if I'm not mistaken, who Joe Louis had fought, who was out of Nazi Germany, and they didn't give any opportunities to Joe Louis. And I remember somebody bringing up just the irony that they would hire somebody from an enemy side of the fence before they hired a black man in America who literally sacrificed a chunk of his career just to show his patriotism. And so, to some, obviously, that's incorrect. That's wrong for them to do that to him. But then also, it was problematic that he felt the need to show patriotism to the people who had treated him the worst. It seems to me that if you're going to be patriotic, you should be patriotic to your community, right? If Joe Louis had been black first, I think he would have understood the importance of protecting his resources and keeping his guard up instead of somehow thinking that the people who don't like you or don't respect you are going to have any use for you once you can't box anymore. Once you're no longer a cash cow or serve an economic benefit, is either an athlete, entertainer, comedian, or whatever, then you're going to be taken out to pasture like everybody else. You just become a regular black man. So anyway, let's keep going here. According to Dr. Anderson, he says here the protracted problems that blacks endure today in America are similar in nearly every respect to conditions in Germany following World War II, conditions that were justified for the aid the U.S. gave to the nation that it had just fought for 4 years. The U.S. wanted to take whatever measures possible to help Germany develop industries, businesses, and consumer products and return to a normal functioning country. Otherwise, there will be no political stability and no assured peace in Germany. Now, isn't this interesting, right? Because you think about this, Germany is a very strong economy now. Germany, their engineering is known around the world. A lot of you may have bought or considered owning German cars. And none of this would be possible if the United States had not stepped up and invested billions of dollars in rebuilding their community. The same thing is true in Japan. After they dropped that bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, there was lots of investment in Japan, and now Japan is one of the great superpowers of the world. So the question I would ask is, what would the black community look like if we were able to access the kinds of resources that we deserve in order to build the kinds of communities that we aspire to build? What would happen if someone like me was able to, with a PhD in finance, was able to acquire $10 billion to invest in building a school system or whatever it is across the country to educate our children on economics? Our kids would literally lead the earth. They would literally lead the earth in economic intelligence. That much I can tell you right now, because I know exactly how to do it. In fact, they're going to do it anyway, just with the resources we've had. But it will be much easier if we had the resources that we really would be able to apply in order to achieve the goal. So effectively, to me, my simple point would be that, and I encourage you to consider this, that you can't just tell me that you care about me. You got to show me. Love is a verb. Love is a verb. I can't just tell my wife, "Hey, baby, I love you," and then get on an airplane and abandon her and the kids and leave them here to starve to death. I can't say I love you and then go hanging out with Sally and Cindy and abandon the household and act like I don't care about the family no more. I can't. That's not love. I mean, I could say it. I could call her every day and be, "Baby, I love you. I love you. I love you." But that's not really love. Love is a verb. Love is I show my love to her by being here with her every day. I show my love to her by helping her with the kids. I show my love to her by going out and working hard for the family. I show my love to her by taking out the damn garbage. Love is a verb. Love is a verb. Love is a verb. Love is a verb. Do we agree that love is a verb? Tell me if you agree. So if love is a verb, love is a verb, love is a verb, love is a verb, why in the hell do we take it when politicians will say, "I love you, I love you, I love you," and put no action behind their words? Why in the world do we allow people to give us words when we know that talk is cheap? The reason they say talk is cheap is because it don't cost you nothing to say something. It don't cost you nothing to say what you gonna do and who you are and we promise you this and promise you that. No, no, no. Love is a verb. Love is a verb. I need action. If you have no action, then your words mean absolutely nothing. Why? Well, because talk is cheap. So, in my view, if you want to translate this into political action, and I'm not here to tell you how to do that, you can make your own decision on that point. I'm not trying to persuade you on anything other than the basics. The basics say that action is more important than just language. Don't just tell me that you are sorry for slavery, show me. Write the damn check. Don't just tell me that you embrace African Americans. Show me. Write the check. Write the check. Don't run away every time we want to talk about reparations. Don't make it. We shouldn't have to chase you down and beg you to do what you know you need to do. And then the other thing too that's just so crazy is I got to chase you and beg you. The only time I can get your attention is when you're trying to get something out of me, and you'll chase me down and beg me to come out and show up to the polls for you. But when I was chasing you down to get you to write that reparations check, you wasn't picking up the phone. I had to act like the bill collector or the baby mama looking for the child support, or running up in the club with a bonnet and bunny slippers saying, "Where's the money? Little Pookie needs some diapers." And you have been AWOL the entire time. So to me, when you talk about this political relationship, it has to be respectful, fair, and reciprocal. I don't think that it has been to this point. Again, you can think differently, it's totally fine, but I don't think it's been reciprocal because you want something tangible from us, but you don't give us anything tangible in return. Reparations is the item of the day. Thank goodness it's been finally pushed to the top. Shout out to everybody who's been talking about it consistently. They just had a reparations rally in DC. Tariq Nasheed and some others got together, and I thought that was great. I spoke at the rally a couple years ago, and I support it entirely. And I personally think this is the rallying cry for this generation. Let's keep going here. All right, so let's see here. So the U.S. wanted to take whatever measures possible to help Germany develop industries, businesses, and consumer products. This is the same message that Black Lives Matter marchers have carried across this nation in recent years. Their banners and chants proclaim no justice, no peace. The urban centers where blacks are the majority population need to be economically redeveloped and industrialized to become politically stable and peaceful. Blacks need industrialization, not gentrification or displacement by immigration, which we know those two things are happening. The goals and strategies of the World War II Marshall Plan are good models because, by all accounts, the plan was enormously successful in rebuilding Germany and war-torn Europe. An urban Marshall Plan for Black America should provide federal funds targeted to 10 majority Black populated urban centers. Such a national Marshall Plan should primarily focus on economically redeveloping and industrializing those centers for the specific benefit of this nation's historically underserved Black population. Just as this nation has implemented programs to address problems peculiar to immigrants, women, gays, ethnics, and protracted socioeconomic let me go back here. And the handicapped, it is time for it to prioritize and fully address the protracted socioeconomic dilemma of the nation's official underclass, Black Americans. Because of their unique historical oppression, Black Americans should not have to queue up with fabricated class minorities for corrective government assistance, meaning that you shouldn't have to blend in with other people. You should be able to get something alone. The goal of such assistance should be to complete the short-lived efforts begun in the 1960s to correct the historical legacies of slavery. In 2012, the Harvest Institute, which is Dr. Claude Anderson's think tank, asked President Barack Obama to structure an urban Marshall Plan for Black America. Unfortunately, Obama did not acknowledge, nor did he or his staff respond to the request, and Black people in their respective neighborhoods continue to deteriorate. But where there is life, there is hope. Even though African Americans are without functional communities, a competitive economy, and are an underclass. An underclass group is one that has faded from the public consciousness and, by the very nature of its socioeconomic conditions and political powerlessness, will always struggle for survival. However, Blacks did not become an underclass overnight. An urban Marshall Plan for Black America still holds the potential to reverse deteriorating conditions within Black America and their neighborhoods. The question is, from whence will come the needed measure of national concern and economic assistance? Okay, that's enough. I'm going to stop us right there. Next week, we're going to ask this question. Why is the pattern of Black men killed by white law enforcement personnel so acceptable and so entrenched in society? So he's going to give the history of policing and the racism of it, of course, next week. We're going to do that next week. But today, what I can do is, since we have a few more minutes, is I can answer some questions for you if you have questions. I'm going to say this. When you talk about Juneteenth, I think that there has to be some sort of substance there in terms of starting with your own lives and starting with the broader community. What are the key issues and what would be expected? If you talk about the elections coming up, What do you feel that you deserve in exchange for your vote? I'm not telling you what to ask for, but I think you should ask for something. And I don't think you should just lean on fear. I don't think fear of a Republican presidency or fear of a Democrat should drive you to choose any political party. I think that it should be something more substantive than that, because fear leans on lower vibrational energy. When they get you afraid, they get you pretty much to comply to whatever they want you to do. And I think that's a problem. Why are you so successful when others fail? Let's take accountability. Okay. Why am I successful when others fail? I will say that part of it came from, I give my parents credit for having a strong culture of accountability and personal responsibility. And I do believe that there is an accountability among us to do the best we can with what we have. I think that there are opportunities for Black people. I saw Charlemagne the guy was debating with Bill Maher, and Bill Maher didn't agree with him when Charlemagne said that it's 5 times harder to be successful if you're Black than if you're white. And I think that Bill Maher is wrong. I think Charlemagne was right about that. And the reason I say that is because I know as a Black man, there were a lot more landmines I had to dodge, a lot more things I had to kind of navigate. Like, a lot of people can't say, my best friend got shot in the head, or I have several friends who got many, many years in prison, or my father wasn't there because he was on drugs when I was growing up as a kid, or the other things I have, or I had to navigate a culture that's being mass promoted to people like me that basically encourages Black men to sit around and drink and smoke and womanize and waste their time and promote ignorance, right? Over productivity. So I think that it is harder as a Black person to get to a certain level. When I got my PhD in finance, I was the only African American on the entire planet to get that degree that year, and it wasn't just because white guys are smarter. So I think that that arrogance of thinking that somehow you're superior and that you're just culturally better and intellectually better than us, and that's why you're able to navigate your system better than we can. That's a bunch of nonsense, and I think Bill Maher is wrong. All right, so let's see here. Let's see. Shantae says, "Are we as Black people in a position comparable, parallel to the J community, to really say voting doesn't matter or won't affect us? Look at the Supreme Court and other courts amongst." I'm not saying voting does or does not matter. I'm just going to say that they don't really vote as much as we do, and I think it's because of the fact that they teach economics to their children at an early age, and they have a culture built around the acquisition and the preservation and the growth of resources. I don't think we have a culture that's built around the acquisition and the preservation and the growth of economic resources. I don't think that there's enough financial consciousness in the community. If there was more financial consciousness, then that means that you would get money and you would protect it, you would grow it, you would invest it. You'd be more likely to place it somewhere where it's safe and it will grow, as opposed to doing this, right? And this comes from a lot of this comes right out of hip hop culture. Hip hop culture constantly promotes these images of these famous, wealthy, mostly men, just throwing money around. And then now I guess the women, the female rappers, are throwing their bodies around, right? So they're cheapening themselves by selling their bodies. Everybody's twerking, right? And I personally think that that is a difference maker. So I think that you got to kind of look around. Don't get me wrong. I believe in accountability for everybody. I will hold, white America as accountable as they need to be. I have no problem with that. I have no fear of that. But I also think that it would be wrong to act like white people are solely responsible for every problem that we have. I don't agree with that. I think that we have choices, and I think sometimes we take a crutch. We take an accountability crutch. We just let people make us the victims, and then as the victims, we just say, as victims, there's no responsibility, no accountability that you have, and I don't think that that empowers you. All right, so let's see. Fanny says, "Is there a chance that you will create a Black investment company?" Probably not. I don't really see that. I really don't want to. I don't know. I'm busy with stuff with the Black Business School, and even back when the Tulsa Fund started, I was asked to do something similar to that, and I said no, I don't want to do that because I don't want to I don't want to manage a bunch of money from a lot of unqualified investors, because if it goes wrong, it'll be a disaster, and that's exactly what happened. It went wrong. I don't know what occurred with that money with the Tulsa Fund, but I do know that whatever happened, somebody messed up, and now it's undermined the trust in the Black economic revolution, or the Black economic movement, which has really disappointed me too, because I had high hopes for it, and I personally don't want. But then again, though, at the same time, it was kind of like it was a storm. It was a storm of bad management, but also when you have investors that have never really invested before and don't really understand exactly what's happening, it can go wrong. It can all go wrong. All right, so let's see here. Do you think that we will get reparations soon? Is it going to take a lot of time? I think it's going to take a while, but I think that's good because as if it takes a while, that gives you time to prepare to make sure you're asking for the right thing. Because if they wrote that check tomorrow, I personally think that we would not ask for the right things, and the reparations plan would just be a bunch of BS. And then that would be the next thing I'd be talking about is how crazy it is. How do we get recordings of the book club meetings? Great question. If you go to drboycebookclub.com, you should be able to find it there. So just go to drboycebookclub.com and also you can email support at theblackbusinessschool.com. Support at theblackbusinessschool.com. They can not only help you with anything you want to do in the Black Business School, but they can also help you find the book club information. So feel free. Yeah, there's probably by now, I bet you there's 400 lectures in there. Something I don't know. It's a lot of stuff. Maybe at least 200 or 300. Terrence, with the current statistics of Black economics and culture, how many more years do you think it will be before we as a people break through to prosperity? You know what, Terrence? I think it's already happened. I don't think it's going to happen where everybody crosses the line at the same time. I don't believe that. Some people will be generations behind others. Do you understand? Some of you have already crossed. I know you. I know because we have 162,000 students in the Black Business School, and everybody ain't the same. Not everybody's at the same place. Some of you are disciplined. I talked to a 38-year-old Black man today who is managing hundreds of millions of dollars, who's 100% pro-Black, who's right here in our space. You'll probably never hear his name because he doesn't run around bragging about it, but he's really getting it done. And I've talked to dozens of families in the last few weeks that have over $1 million in assets. So, the reason we think every Black person is suffering is because they only promote certain images of Black people in media. You're not seeing the people that I think you should see. I think you should see some of the really intelligent, hardworking, industrious people out there. A lot of the people that follow this platform, for example, are military people. And one thing I've noticed about my friends that are in the military is they don't mess around. They don't sit around and feel sorry for themselves. They're not lazy. They just want to figure out what's the mission, what's the assignment, how do we get this done, and they get it done. My father was in Vietnam War, and that's his mindset. My father does not sit around crying like a little biatch. He doesn't do that. He figures out what needs to be done, and he gets it done because he knows his family needs him. And that to me is simple. And I really wish that was more of the culture, but unfortunately, that's not what's promoted. It makes me want to vomit in my mouth every time I see a Black man feeling sorry for himself. Because where I come from, that's just not how you win a battle. That's not how you fight for anything. So I'm not here to disrespect anybody, but maybe your sons need to hear this, because some of our boys are not tough. You got to be tough, man. You got to fight. That's it. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna get off the soapbox with that, but that's just my encouragement. I really think even when I hear these goofy conversations about relationships, and the men will say, "Well, what about the women? Well, she wants me to have money. Well, she ain't got no money," and I'm like, "But you're not a woman, though. You're not. That's like if you say you want her to have long, pretty hair, and she says, "Well, he ain't got no hair." Well, he's a man. He's not going to have hair like yours most of the time, right? So I just really think that when we get to this point where we're starting to act like the men and the women are the same, I think you're losing even more of your identity. Where when I in my household, it was very clear who the man was and who the woman was, and everybody kind of had their own job based on that distinction. And so the fact that people don't know these things, these very basic things, that's really jeopardizes your community. And I'll say this last point, then I'm done on this one. But I think that one thing that we struggle with as a Black community is that people don't respect the community because they don't respect your men. They have no fear that the Black men are going to come together and stand up and defend anything. They don't think they don't. I think that our women feel less protected than women in other groups. They would expect a Black woman to fight them before they expect Black men to do that, and that's embarrassing. Honestly, I think that that's just something that has to be addressed and dealt with. To be honest with you, so and I know everybody's not in that category, so don't think I'm talking about you if you don't fit the description. But y'all see what I'm talking about. It's BS. It's nonsense. It's ridiculous. All right, so Dr. Vibe, how you doing, Dr. Vibe? Good to see you. What are your thoughts on Switch Beats and Timberlands versus distribution deal with Elon Musk? Yeah, I think I didn't know Elon Musk was such a racist, but then I saw some of the things he tweeted. I said, oh my God, that's right. You were born during apartheid. So Elon Musk is a guy that I think he doesn't hate every black person, but he doesn't generally respect black people as a collective. And I think that Elon Musk also says the things out loud that a lot of other people like him, melanin deficient people like him, are afraid to say. They're thinking it, but they don't say it. I mean, seriously, think about this. Let me know if you know what I'm talking about. You really think if you ask them, like in their heart of hearts, to really tell the truth about how they perceive the black community or how they perceive the black male, do you really think they're going to say good things? Like, do you think that maybe that's the reason why, they don't want their daughter to get pregnant by a black man? Because they're thinking, oh, he's just going to abandon the baby. And then we glorify men who abandon the baby. And that becomes the image of us throughout the world. And that just drives me crazy. I don't like Musk as a person, but I never cared about liking him. I look at him like I look at Donald Trump. He's a young Donald Trump. Donald Trump was the same way, just kind of an arrogant white male who underestimated the amount of privilege that he had, but also had some intelligence. Musk has skill, and you have to acknowledge that. At the same time, I think the Switch Beats and Timberland, they look like typical people in the entertainment industry. They'll just sign with whoever's got the most money. So I'm sure if you ask them about Elon Musk's racist tweet that he put up, I think he liked a tweet that was something that said something about black people killing white people, and then there was another tweet about black people having lower IQ scores. That they didn't talk about that one. I saw that one where there was something he shared where it said that black people have lower IQ scores than white people, and that's just you know, it's like whatever. But by the way, Larry, okay, I see your issue with the ABC. If you went to allblacknationalconvention.com and you had any issue with a ticket, make sure you email support@theblackbusinessschool.com. I think that we have somebody in the chat from the team. I don't know, Amani, are you in the chat? If you're in the chat, say something. So maybe somebody in the chat can actually help you as well. But if not, you can email support@theblackbusinessschool.com. There we go. There's Amani. Amani's right there in the chat. So if you have a question about your tickets for the convention, she can take good care of you. And speaking of that, you guys know the All Black National Convention is October 25th through the 27th. And basically, the theme for this year is you are your own black leader, and basically we want you to open up the black leader inside of you, because that's what I believe is going to be the solution. It's not going to be everybody doing the same thing at the same time or having one great leader that leads everybody. It's going to be individuals and families, right, working together and just saying, okay, we don't care what's going on outside of this house, but this is how things are happening here. And if you have a series of strong families, then that's how you build a strong community. So that's the theme for this year, and we have a lot of speakers and panels and all kinds of stuff, and you're gonna love it. The energy is always very, very good at the convention. So you can go to allblacknationalconvention.com, and it's going to take place October 25th through the 27th in Lombard, Illinois, right outside Chicago. All right, so how far out will it be to see Powernomics training centers throughout the country? I don't know. If we raise the money, I tell you, I don't know. Somebody introduced me to Jaylen Brown's brother. The guy who just won the championship, and I said, yeah, I'll talk to his brother. Maybe I can get them to endorse a project or something and help raise the money to do something like that. But it's something where I mean, I tried to talk Kanye into it. I don't think he completely understood the vision. I think he's a little bit distracted, but maybe Jaylen can do what Kanye would not do. I would love to see somebody put forth the resources. I don't want to make a nickel. I don't need any money from anybody, but I would love to see somebody put that kind of and really you could do a lot with just maybe $50 million or something. Like you could really build a powerful template, hire some people and really execute that. And here's the idea, right? Here's what people don't understand is that people think that to understand economics at a high level, you have to have this deep, comprehensive education, and you really don't. It's really literally in finance. And I say this as a guy who's seen all the theories and all the, taking all the classes. There are like little tiny things you can do. Like if you have like, you can have like, if you limit it to maybe 10 rules that everybody followed or something related to investing in wealth, it would take the black community from the bottom to the top. Like we would literally go to the lead if everybody was incentivized to follow those basic rules. Very basic things. Invest 10% of your income in the S&P 500. Everybody's wealthy within less than a generation. Um, think about where you're spending your money. Right? Don't give your money away to other people. Work on your families. Work on the things that are not financial. That's what's going to actually protect your wealth. We talk about wealth and we talk about investing and people. I see people online talking about stock options that they bought that made money. Making money is not the most important part of building wealth. The most important part of building wealth really has to do with the things that money can't buy. It's creating an economic incubator in a space that generates financial fertility. See, there are some spaces where money will grow, and there's some spaces where money will not grow. It's just like a garden. There's some land that will grow anything, and then there's some land that is like a desert that's very dry. So the problem is that the areas where your economics is supposed to grow are like little deserts. You have a lot of economic deserts in your families created by bad culture. For example, undiagnosed, untreated trauma is a huge problem. That's why we created the Black Financial Therapy Department in the Black Business School. No other school has this. No HBCU has this, but we got the scientists that are working on this because we realized that the trauma levels are so high in the community, it's ridiculous. It is a virus that no one talks about. Trauma is everywhere. And in fact, if you go take the ACEs test, ACEs stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences, the ACEs test, I guarantee that most of you are going to have a very high trauma score. And what my beautiful wife taught me, who is an expert on trauma, she's certified on this, in addition to being a full professor of social work and a licensed therapist, she sees 4 or 5 clients a day. She was explaining to me all of the things that trauma causes you to do that you're not aware of. Trauma causes you to die earlier. It makes it very, very hard for you to have relationships. It causes you to make horrible economic decisions, all that. So just by not healing the trauma, that's probably costing the Black community several $trillion every generation. So if you're trying to really develop wealth in a community, you're going to have to heal that trauma. Traumatized people can't get together because when they get together, they start fighting each other. They trigger each other. It's like we're jabbing each other with little swords and cutting each other's hearts out. And then you're next thing you know, you're scared or you're mad or you want to fight or you want to run or whatever. You're having all these trauma responses, and trauma responses don't work well in business meetings. You can't have a good. Anybody ever tried to love a heavily traumatized person? It's impossible. Their feelings get hurt. Next thing you know, they trying to set your bed on fire while you're sleeping, right? Or they don't ran and they don't ghosted you. They don't call you back, right? Or whatever, right? So these are the things that have to be discussed. You got to discuss it all. You have to discuss it all, and you need scientists, and we've got the scientists, we've got the people. So what the resources would do if we had say $50 million in a pot and said built out some sort of ecosystem, we would hire those scientists, right? And literally, instead of you spending all your time serving massa at whatever job you have, doing something that means nothing to the Black community, you would be applying all your energy and attention to solving these problems. That which you put your energy into is that which pays off. That's it. That if you put the car you put the gas in is the one that's going to go the furthest. So the Black wealth car doesn't go very far because nobody puts gas in the damn thing. But the white man's bus goes it goes 10,000 miles because we're all pouring our gas into that. We're all putting our intellectual capital into that. We're all pouring our spare time, free time, everything else into that. So the things that we pour energy into are the things that will grow. The things that we don't pour energy into are the things that will not grow. So you've got to be in a position. Part of your freedom package, in my opinion, isn't just to have the freedom to do what you want, but it's also to have the consciousness of what to do with that freedom. So you got to understand if you study something like stock options with me, and what I do is I talk about options from both sides, and I say, okay, if you are the person who does not have an option, then you've lost something. When you give someone an option that you used to own, they compensate you for it. So what they do every day when you go to work is they're buying an option from you. You have the option to stay at home and Netflix and chill or spend time with your kids, but instead you sell that option in exchange for a paycheck, which is just enough money for you to survive and get by, right? So let's see what happens when you actually have wealth. See, when you have wealth, you don't have to sell that option anymore, right? Because now you've got what you need. Do you follow me? Let me know if you're following this analogy. So you don't have to sell your option of freedom anymore because now you've got enough income. You're like, no, I don't need your little crappy job because daddy invested for me or mom will put some stocks in the fridge for me. So I'm fine. I'm going to be okay. So now you've got this option. Now you're wealthier because you've got this option in your hands, and then you have the ability to use this option in any way that you want. Follow me now, follow me. So you've got this option. You can apply this option anywhere that you want. Now you have to have consciousness to understand what to do with that power. If you are a man or woman with power or options or something of value, or something of weight, and you don't have consciousness, like you're a blind person that's just going to throw it in any direction, then what you're going to do is you're going to waste your opportunity. And I've told you all 1,000 times that the word poor stands for what? It stands for passing over opportunities repeatedly. So when you are not conscious, you are effectively begging to be poor. Those who are not conscious of what you're doing with your power. What are you doing with your energy? What are you doing with your spare time? What are you doing with your intellect? What are you doing with this extra option that you have to do whatever you want? And unconscious people, they just waste it. They waste it. It's just like love. With love, you have the option to be with whoever you want. And if you don't value yourself or you're not conscious about who you're dating, next thing you know, you got a baby mama or a baby daddy that you hate. Right. And you're like, how did this happen? Well, because you weren't conscious. You had something valuable. You had an option. Options have value. This is one of the most fundamental rules of financial theory. When you have options, that there is value there, but you gave that value away because you did not see the value in what you had. Do you understand that? So anytime you see somebody who gets the blessing of being fired from their job, and when they get blessed by being fired from their job and they're sitting at home, they have the option of what to do with all this free time. An unconscious person wastes that option by sitting there and saying, gosh, I'm worthless because nobody's calling me. Because the white man won't hire me, then my time has no value. I'm worthless because he doesn't acknowledge me. But a conscious person says, oh, wait a minute, I've got a whole extra 14 hours a day. What am I going to do with this? I am suddenly blessed and endowed with all this wealth. And then consciousness and education, enlightenment, knowledge gives me a plethora of options, a plethora of ways I can use this newfound wealth called free time. Time, see, the prize is not the money, the prize is in the time. The prize is in the freedom. Money only matters to the extent that it can buy you time, that it can buy you freedom, that it can buy you peace, all these other things that we value. So when you have these things in your possession and you are conscious, to me, that is the most powerful you can ever be. Really, and my goal in my life, in my own life, I'm not trying to be powerful over other people. I just want to be powerful in my own space. And my goal is to have options, freedom, free time, and to be very conscious of what I do with that time. And I think when you do that, then what happens is you say, I'll tell you, like, for example, I know that I don't spend a lot of time doing stupid stuff. If I feel like something is stupid or a meeting is a waste of time or somebody's getting on my nerves, I walk away because I say, I think I'd rather use this time calling my mother because one day I'm going to hit an age where I won't have a mother anymore, and I need to go and pour that time into my mother, or I'm going to spend this time reading a book, or I'm going to spend this time with my wife, or I'm going to spend this time gaining a skill. Do you understand? So consciousness, I think, is critical, but then also freedom to go with the consciousness is powerful because if you are a conscious slave, then you will be tortured. Life is terrible if you are a conscious slave. It goes back to when James Baldwin used to say that when you're black and conscious, you're just going to be pissed off all the time. And I think that that's because because you're conscious of what freedom looks like. You're conscious of how valuable freedom is. You're conscious of what you would do with that freedom if you have it, but you don't have it. So you're in that horrible position of really desiring something that you don't have access to. So then you're like the lion that's in the cage that's roaring every minute, and the zookeeper puts his arm in there, you're gonna rip his arm off because you're dying to get out of this cage, right? So get that freedom, and with the freedom comes the consciousness, but they tend to go hand in hand. So I believe that if we really almost are meditative about this and really think about this, like, okay, what does freedom really look like? How do we acquire it? And then when we get it, what do we do with it? Then can't nobody stop us. We'll win every battle. You can't defeat a conscious, intelligent black man or black woman that has plenty of resources and plenty of self-esteem and knows who the hell they are and knows where the hell they're going. The world can't stop a person like that. So my goal, if I was running a system like this, a school system, is I would take that 50 million and I will pour it into a production process. I would mass produce millions of little Black children that know who they are, that know where the money's at, they know what hard work is required to get it. They are very conscious of possibilities and opportunities, and they are assertive and very, very focused in terms of what the next step is going to be. And also they are healed, so they are collaborative and loving toward one another, so they can then go in as a group and kick everybody's ass, whoever tries to threaten the freedom that God gave them. That to me is the dream. That's the beauty. That's what's going to happen. That's what we're going to see it one day. Maybe we won't see it while I'm here, but that's, to me, the Black community that will prosper. Right. So that's it, guys. I'm done talking. Thank you guys for listening. I hope this discussion was helpful to you. Tomorrow morning, we do financial consciousness training. We do this every single morning at 10 a.m. So if you want to come, bring your family. It's totally free. Anybody who wants to join, all you got to do, pull out your phone, text the word morning to the number 87948. If you text morning to 87948, I'll send you an invitation. Or if you live out of the country, you can go to drboyceelevate.com. That's drboyceelevate.com. And that's it. And also, if you want to take a look at my books or my wife's books or our financial flashcards for kids, things like that, you can go to drboycebooks.com. That's drboycebooks.com. All right, everybody, have a good day. God bless you.
Erica Badu said it best. She says, "I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my shit," and that's the truth, right? I think any artist. I'm an entrepreneur, and I can say the same thing. Whenever you are sharing your world or your art with somebody, it can be sensitive, right? You also talked about early music. I'm going to reset. I'm in a hot second, but you also talked about early music, and it was very different. It was very positive. It was uplifting. Danette Mitchell says, when I was growing up, we had ratchet music. However, in the Black community, we kept it underground and elevated positive music. This is when we owned our own radio stations and music stores. I can remember listening to a Tupac who's going to give you a little bit of ratchet, but give you something to think about. Where Mama or Brenda Had a Baby, KRS-One. So you have a nice mix. Today's music, it's all pop that P, look at my P, suck this, bitch that. Like, there's no love music, there's no community. Like, when you want to, I think it affects our relationships. I think it affects how men and women relate to each other, talk to each other. I think it affects our relationships, our ability to communicate, our ability to love. um, Music is so powerful and influential. Much like this conversation that we're having today about hip hop's damaging influence on Black women, right here on Fly Nubian Money, which we do every Monday through Friday at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern. You can catch us here. And you can also get notified when we're live if you text the word Queens, Queens, to 87948. Again, that's 87948. You can also catch us on Spotify by searching Fly Nubian Money to take us on the go with you. Aisha, I want to come back and talk to you. Given your Nigerian background, can you share some cultural differences between the music scenes in Nigeria and the United States, particularly regarding what's allowed to be discussed on the airwaves and how it influences societal values? That was a mouthful. You might be a mute.
Sorry about that. That's such a great question. And just listening to Dr. Alicia talking about the mental, how it affects us mentally. And what you also just said, Dr. Linnea, about, the way it affects you and how it makes you feel. It's amazing to me that today as well, hip hop now has now crossed over where it's now also affecting the culture back home where I'm from. I just recently had a visit back home, and I came back when I was there visiting, and some young people were talking, and I couldn't believe what came out of their mouth. And I know it's because of the hip hop culture and what they were listening to. They were literally referring to the African Americans with the N word casually. I stopped them. I said, "Do you understand that this is unacceptable?" But because of what the pop culture says, so they thought it was normal to speak like that. I was mortified, and I had to correct them that please do not speak like this. It is unacceptable. Again, because the music business doesn't care. They now are spreading all over the world, especially now in Africa, where our music for us was for praise and gratitude and celebration. Now it's becoming abusive. It's becoming abusive because you're watching as they're selling these products to them and they're listening, is now becoming what now they think it's okay. So when I went and I was visiting and I heard that, I literally stopped them and corrected. I said, no, we're not going to do that here. This is not what we're about, because you think it's funny or you think that is what you watch, and as you're watching these videos, it is not who we are. So ladies, it is crossing over. And unfortunately, it's about money. At the end of the day, it's not about caring about who we are, that we are fearfully and wonderfully made by God and to be respected and loved and cherished. No, they just want to make money. They don't care who is damaged as this is happening. And but for me, I make sure that even when I go back and I tell my brothers back home and my nephews and nieces that they're not allowed to watch videos like that. Because this is not who we are. This is not how we were raised. This is not what our parents taught us. And that we have to stay true to who we are and not listen to those music, because we know it's not edifying. It doesn't add no value to your life. It only denigrates you. And now here you are calling your brothers and sisters that are from America the N-word and thinking it's normal. So it saddened me that was happening, but that is what's happening today. Again, we have to like you said, that we should make sure that it comes from us, Athena, that we should be the one making that move. We should be the one making that difference in our own homes and making sure that we talk to our children and tell them that no, this is not part of our culture. This is something else. Somebody else is selling this to us and we're buying it. But we were not going to buy it here. I'm hoping that is what we can do, as brothers and sisters in this space, that will make sure that we tell our children that no, this is not our culture. This is not how we're supposed to talk to each other or refer to each other, especially our women. An African woman, oh my goodness, she gave birth to the world. I said, you know how powerful you are. You gave birth to the world. And now they're denigrating you with music by your own people, by your own boys and your own men, and think it's okay. It is not okay. It is not okay, because then you're allowing other people to look at you that way.
And what a lot of times what the youth, and we can say people, but mostly youth, don't realize is the verbiage, the language, the lifestyle, the drugs, the oversexualization. A lot of this stuff, the people who are rapping about it, they don't even do that. Some of these people come from 2-parent homes, good homes. They were like the life that they're rapping about, the image that they're portraying, they don't actually do in their real life. We're going to go to this video from Future talking about lean and the fact that he actually doesn't even use it. So let's cue that video.
Future regrets his influence on Juice WRLD, and the reason why will truly shock you. One of the first things that Juice WRLD told Future when they met up to make their 2018 record World on was that Future had influenced him to try lean. Juice WRLD told Vulture.com, "That's the first thing I told him." He was just like, wow. He kind of apologized. Future later reacted to this situation in an interview with Rolling Stone magazine, saying, quote, "When he told me that, I was like, oh what have I done? It really bothered me. It bothered me a lot. More than I thought it would bother me when he told me that. How many other 6th graders did I influence to drink lean? This really messed me up for a minute. It's all I could think about. Like, damn, what have I done? What have I done to other people?" Regardless of his habits, Juice WRLD was one of the best to ever do it. It will be remembered as such.
And so more accountability is definitely needed. More truth is definitely needed. More authenticity is definitely needed. I saw over in the chat, some people were talking about, what about the parents? Why are parents letting them listen to this music? Listen, I'm only gonna speak for myself. I was young once. My mom didn't know what I was listening to. You, as a parent, you can make sure that you listen to all the appropriate things in the car. You can put on, what do they call it? Explicit types of blocks on your child's phones. You can take the TVs out your house. They still got to go to school and their friends is listening to it. They still got to ride the bus and their friends is listening to it. They still see YouTube. Like, it's everywhere. Athena, how has music influenced you growing up? So I think I remember you saying you're 33, so you come from a different era of music than I do. So let's do that. Tell me what you're listening to right now, and then tell me how music has influenced you.
Well, I have a very eclectic musical taste. I am from the Caribbean, so obviously reggae and dancehall is a very big influence from there. I also listen to classical music. I listen to hip hop. I listen to pop. I listen to ratchet music. I'm going to sit here and be honest on the panel. I do like some of the artists that we have in question. I do listen to Cardi B. I do listen to Megan Thee Stallion. But I think the difference for me, though, is it's just entertainment for me. And because I'm not living in that lifestyle or culture, I'm not as, I guess, susceptible to that.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're watching the replay or re-listening to this on Spotify, because Fly Nubian Money is now on Spotify. I am Dr. Lene Javette, and today's conversation is necessary. We're going to be talking about hip hop's damaging influence on Black women. Today's conversation is, of course, sparked by the recent passing of Enchanting. And pardon me while I read this stuff, because I'm not a hip hopper, so I'm unsure. So I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to introduce our queens who are going to be having this conversation today. So we're discussing the complex relationship between Black women and hip hop, addressing themes of hypersexualization, societal pressures, body image, and the influence of drug and alcohol. With the recent passing of rapper Enchanting at just 26 years old, it highlights the challenges that Black women face in the industry. We want to acknowledge her life and music while exploring addiction and some of the horribly toxic things that come as a byproduct of hip hop music. Prior to her death, Enchanting was signed to 1017 Records in 2020 per New York's Hot 97 radio station. She appeared on 3 compilation albums before she left the label in 2023. The rising star reportedly died after being taken off life support at a hospital. In a statement to the Shade Room, a representative from her management team said the 26-year-old was suffering from withdrawals and had overdosed. She came to my house the last 4 days to get clean. She tried her best and did everything, and I did everything I could to help her. She tried, the rep told the outlet. The name of her last mixtape was called Love and Drugs. And so today we're going to be talking again about the damaging influence of Black women in hip hop. I'm joined today by there's 4 of us total, 3 amazing queens. Athena Gardner, she's a CPA and a women's wealth coach. Dr. Alicia Watkins, she's a couples coach, psychotherapist, and college professor, as well as Aisha Verzi, who's a licensed financial services provider. Let's start out with, how does the glamorization of substance abuse and music videos or lyrics affect Black women? Athena, we'll start with you.
Well, I think the glamorization of rappers and the music does affect women. Women as a group, I feel, idolize and look to other women for their style, their sense of being, and really try to emulate images of the celebrities and rappers that they see. So when it comes to the images, the hypersexualization, we often see that trickle down into our youth. I was thinking the other day, I was looking at some of the girls in middle school and high school. And I remember when I was in middle school and high school, and I was just like, oh my gosh, these ladies look so grown. You know, they look so mature, the way they're dressing. And I think that hip hop and the over sexualization of Black women have a lot to do with that. I also feel as though within that, it's almost like, okay, why do we need to have to even emulate that, right? Why do I need to dress like a female rapper all the time? Like, what I would like for us to see as a group is some range, which I feel like on an individual basis we do, but as a collective, I would like to see more range, like lashes just to go to school, like lashes. I don't even have lashes on right now, you know? So
I don't
Those are
ever
my
wear a lot. Well, just the ones that God gave me. I don't like looking like Snuffleupagus. That's my own personal opinion. That's just for me. If other people like it, I don't be hating on what other people do. Just for me, I don't wear lashes. Um, Miss Aisha, am I saying your name correctly? Aisha. Aisha. Okay, perfect. So, how has music influenced your own upbringing? Not necessarily hip hop music today, but we're just talking about how music influences in general. How has music influenced you?
That's a great question, Dr. Leonard. It's so nice to be here with all of you. What a privilege. Thank you so much. I'm just really just sitting out here looking at all of you and just overjoyed with just being here. So thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, music, it's amazing how, like we're talking before, music does affect you. It's incredible how the lyrics, even though you might not be thinking about it, it does affect your mood, the way you think, the way you feel about yourself. And growing up back home in Nigeria, I'm from West Africa, Nigeria, music is a huge part of our culture. We sing songs of praise, songs of celebration, and just songs of thanksgiving. But in today's world, it's so different. When I grew up, it was more of something of joy and celebration, and again praise. And when we do that, we're laughing, we're happy, we're dancing, and it's also edifying. It edifies who you are. It celebrates who you are. It's not denigrating. It's not disrespectful. With today's kind of music, though, is so different. And I also don't listen to those music because I understand how powerful it is when those lyrics, what it does to you. But so grateful that growing up, the kind of music we listen to are the ones that uplift your spirit. Again, when you're celebrating life, you're thanking God, you're celebrating what God has done for you. So there's this joy that is not to disrespect your culture or yourself or others. That is not what we do with music. So that is what music has done for me personally, and I continue to stay on that lane till today.
I agree. Music has always been my go-to. Almost every morning I put my gospel on, so it sets the tone for my day, what I'm listening to. So my mindset is good and it's pure and I'm ready to tackle the day. When I'm frustrated or irritated, I have a playlist I play for that. When I'm feeling like my heart is broken or I want to feel in love, I have love music. So music really does take us different places. And I want to talk about that with you, Dr. Alicia. But before I do, I want to talk to the chat. What are your thoughts on the influence of hip hop on Black women? And if you're a Black man in the chat, we can just make it. What are your thoughts on the influence of hip hop on Black people, right? Our conversation is Black women, but I think it can be broader than that. What do you think about it? And if you have children, do you let your children listen to hip hop today? Dr. Alicia, can you discuss the link between the societal pressures that are amplified by the hip hop culture relative to the music that we're listening to, the risk of substance abuse, over sexualization that's coming through the music? Can you address that?
Thank you, Lene. I mean, it's such a great question. I mean, we know that the glorification of these risky behaviors in hip hop, I mean, that's really what we're talking about. Like the issue with the substance abuse. I mean, it is promoted as a coping mechanism. And although I happen to teach a class on substance abuse, and 93% of Black women have no substance abuse issue. But, for that 7% that do, it just makes you wonder, like, what's going into some of these, the disconnect between the reality and what you see portrayed in real life. Now, the issue that I have with these images is that this promotion of irresponsible alcohol use coupled with promiscuous behavior, I think has detrimental effects. It's promoting this idea, especially for women in their childbearing years, this risk of fetal alcohol syndrome, which I think is a way more common instance than we know. It poses serious health risk for infants. And so it's not just a matter of individual well-being, it's this public health issue that needs to be addressed. And I think that women need to have access to accurate information and resources to mitigate some of these risks. And I think that this unhealthy promotion can have an effect on youth and people who consume this information. I also think that it just has an impact on your mental health, of course. Some of you all kind of alluded to it, Aisha, and even you, Dr. Lene, about how the music affects your mood. It affects, how you interact with the world. So it's just interesting. My first introduction into like acknowledging the influence of music on your subconscious mind in particular. I want to give a special shout out to Brother Panic. He was my initial teacher in the dynamics of subconscious mind programming, and I took his classes and all of that. And since then, I've been doing my own study on this. And I just think that we are powerful individuals, like all of us. And we create our own world through the subconscious mind. And now that you know this, you can understand how powerful music is in programming ourselves. So listening to what I would consider media-controlled messages, it gets internalized and we start seeing ourselves in this way, and we start acting in ways where we're just running this program. It affects how we see ourselves, how we see other people, and it's played out in our daily world. So it's a simple concept of garbage in and garbage out. You are affected by the images and the messages that you receive. And I really think that the answer is just non-participation. We just need to not participate in it and instead focus our energies on things that help us achieve our God-given goals in this world. And I think if we did that, then, media controlled, and I think the industry is contingent on attention, paying attention to it, consumer driven images. If we just stop participate on it and start focusing on things that, give us life, things that are positive, that is a way for us to kind of address some of these issues.
I think that everyone so far has done a great job in hitting on the different and various things, right? So again, our topic today is hip hop's damaging influence on Black women. I think that it is the drugs. I think that it is over-sexualization. I think that it is the body image, the image of the body, right? We're seeing a lot of the surgeries that are being done. So there's the self-image. There is just various stereotypes that are being played out through the media, through the music. And then there is the desensitizing that's happening through the music, because we're saying things, we're speaking certain lyrics because it has a good beat. Molly Percocet, we're just singing it, we're talking about it. And people don't realize that what they're saying is registering, because we know that you have the power of life and death in your tongue. So when you speak things, whether you're affirming or not affirming, that's resonating in your aura. So music has a way of desensitizing us, where the word bitch becomes cool to say. We call our friends, our sister girlfriends bitch because it's desensitized. They say it in the music. Going to get BBLs, it's natural now because somebody else has it. This person got it, so I need to have it too. Media, music, messaging, marketing comes to us through those things, and it happens to Black women, and it's happening to our youth because our youth have access to social media at a much younger age, so they're seeing it, and it happens to the best of us. Can we play that clip? The clip with Nicki Minaj talking about how and or why she got her BBL.
Or and remember, social media was just beginning when I started. So I was like everybody. I was a lot of people's guinea pig. I was one of the first people to be shitted on the internet, on social media, like non-fucking stop. Every day I would go on, and it was some new story, made up story, or bad picture, or it wasn't acceptable to have surgery at all or anything, even though, and at that time I had never had surgery. I had ass shots, which till this day I realize even what I did, and even with me not consulting with anyone to do something like that, how insane that was. Like, it's not that you go to a doctor, a professional person. No, it's some random person.
Yeah, shorty in the Bronx.
Comes in. I was in Atlanta at the time. And actually what happened was I kept on being around Wayne and them. And at that time, you know, Wayne, he always talking about big booties and all. Wayne would have like a new chick in the studio every session. So it was always a new big booty.
Creative support. That's what I like to call it.
A new big booty there.
A muse.
Right. Actually, yes.
Muse.
Actually, it was. They were his muses.
You like to look to the side and see something with some ass sitting there while you're trying to come up with a line.
That's right. And
So, how can we address the pressure to portray a certain image and encourage healthy coping mechanisms? What do you think, Athena?
Well, I think we really need to take a look at ourselves, because what's going to happen is this is an industry that makes a lot of money and is not going to change their business model to accommodate taste that is not going to be profitable. And we need to take a look at ourselves, right? Because if we're waiting on the industry to change for us to make these changes, to tune out these images, then it's just not going to happen. We need to change first, so then the companies and the corporations will adjust, because they will adjust to what is profitable. I would love for hip hop and Black women to get to the level of an Adele or Taylor Swift, where they could keep all their clothes on, do their talent, and go home. But unfortunately, there is a pressure to conform. Now, the solution would be on your individual level of wanting to curate the image that you want to present in the world and be respectable. But to be honest with you, we have other options of role models in the industry, like Rhapsody, or people who are fully clothed, have positive lyrics, right? Versus, I guess, would be the Cardi B's and the Megan Thee Stallion. So I think a lot of this is also a reflection of ourselves and our human nature and what we are paying into, because, to be frank, the corporations are just going to put money behind whatever is profitable. And if you're looking at Rhapsody's albums and mixtapes versus a Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion mixtape sales and pushing that image, you can see why they're choosing to do that.
I definitely personally feel and believe that it's a setup. I cannot think of any other genre of music that is as negative, derogatory, over-sexualized, blatantly disrespectful than hip hop music. It's not in country, it's not in pop, it's not in rock. Hip hop is the only music genre that is uber super disrespectful. Dr. Alicia, I'm looking for my question. In what ways does the portrayal of Black women in the music industry affect mental health? I have to believe us listening to these lyrics, watching this play out in videos, affects us mentally.
It's oppressive. It's oppressive to see yourself in this limited way. And it's so staggering and so pervasive. There's no range of images that you see in terms of women in hip hop. And it did not used to be this way. I mean, I am so fortunate enough to be there during the birth of hip hop. It was positive. It was Afrocentric. It was, it was something that was uplifting. It told a story about what was going on around us. It was really our voice to authentically talk about what was happening here. And since this is before hip hop became controlled, right? This was just pure coming out of a very unique setting for Black people to tell their story. Now it is so ultrally controlled that all you see is Black women, and not even just in hip hop. I'm talking about Black women in media. All you see is very limiting views of yourself. And yes, I mean, just think about, just think about what Nicki Minaj just said. If you remember Nicki Minaj when she first came out, she was not over sexualized. Her lyrics and stuff, she was kind of straight. She had that weird hair. Her hair was colored in a certain way. You know, she looked really authentic. And then all of a sudden she comes out with this album. I'm like, who is this lady? This is not how she originally presented herself. So that tells you that she had a hard conversation with somebody. Clearly she did, where she had to change who and what she is in order to be successful. It's oppressive. And yes, it has an effect on your mental health. I mean, listen to what she said. She don't sound empowered in that conversation with that man. She didn't sound like she was being authentically herself. She didn't sound as if she was actually putting out music that was congruent to how she felt inside. It sounded oppressive. It sounded misogynistic. Some of the things that she was around. And, you know, artists are very sensitive people. I don't know if you know who I went to performing arts school, and I'm in this kind of art world, but it's entertainers are very sensitive, and they can be, you know, they feel so much of their worth is tied to the attention, the recognition that people have, because it's so personal to them. And I can't imagine not being your authentic self, putting something out that you know is not congruent with who you are, and then getting accolades for that, for being inauthentic, for being what someone has told you to be, therefore you can be successful. I can't imagine how terrible that feels, not only for us to see ourselves in that way, but for these artists and what they actually go through. Yes, it has an effect on your mental health. I mean, just think about putting your self-worth on how you look. So that means that you're going to be happy if someone compliments you, not on who you are as a person. Oh, you're a very great person. You're a genuine person. Yes. No, they're going to compliment you on these superficial things. And knowing how empty you might feel inside, because you're like, you know what? The world doesn't see who and what I am authentically. And I get the pressure. It's a very dynamic situation. The entertainment industry is, you know, a business, and you have to be savvy in how you operate in this business. But the impact that it has on your mental health in the end, just the depression that can come with being constrained, you know, the anxiety that you feel because a bad picture of you, or people, what Nicki Minaj talked about, the negative comments that she got online. That is really a real thing that happened to her. You know, in all of these things, how can you feel good about yourself and feel sound and know that you are living your life's purpose when you have all of these constraints?
Erykah Badu said it best. She says, I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my shit. And that's the truth, right? I think any artist, I'm an entrepreneur, and I can say the same thing. Whenever you are sharing your world or your art with somebody, it can be sensitive, right? You also talked about early music. I'm going to reset. I'm in a hot second, but you also talked about early music, and it was very different. It was very positive. It was uplifting. Danette Mitchell says, when I was growing up, we had ratchet music. However, in the Black community, we kept it underground and elevated positive music. This is when we owned our own radio stations and music stores. I can remember listening to a Tupac who's going to give you a little bit of ratchet, but give you something to think about. Dear Mama or Brenda Had a Baby, KRS-One. So you have a nice mix. Today's music, it's all pop that P, look at my P, suck this, bitch that. Like, there's no love music, there's no community. Like, I think it affects our relationships. I think it affects how men and women relate to each other, talk to each other. I think it affects our relationships, our ability to communicate, our ability to love. Music is so powerful and influential. much like this conversation that we're having today about hip hop's damaging influence on Black women, right here on Fly Nubian Money, which we do every Monday through Friday at 1:00 p.m. Eastern. You can catch us here. And you can also get notified when we're live if you text the word Queens, Queens, to 87948. Again, that's 87948. You can also catch us on Spotify by searching Fly Nubian Money to take us on the go with you. Aisha, I want to come back and talk to you. Given your Nigerian background, can you share some cultural differences between the music scenes in Nigeria and the United States, particularly regarding what's allowed to be discussed on the airwaves and how it influences societal values? That was a mouthful. You might be a mute.
Sorry about that. That's such a great question. And just listening to Dr. Alicia talking about the mental, how it affects us mentally. And what you also just said, Dr. Linnea, about, the way it affects you and how it makes you feel. It's amazing to me that today as well, hip hop has now crossed over where it's now also affecting the culture back home where I'm from. I just recently had a visit back home, and I came back when I was there visiting, and some young people were talking, and I couldn't believe what came out of their mouth. And I know it's because of the hip hop culture and what they were listening to. They were literally referring to the African Americans with the N-word casually. I stopped them. I said, "Do you understand that this is unacceptable?" But because of what the pop culture says, so they thought it was normal to speak like that. I was mortified, and I had to correct them that please do not speak like this. It is unacceptable. Again, because the music business doesn't care. They now are spreading all over the world, especially now in Africa, where our music for us was for praise and gratitude and celebration. Now it's becoming abusive. It's becoming abusive because you're watching as they're selling these products to them and they're listening. Is now becoming what now they think it's okay. So when I went and I was visiting and I heard that, I literally stopped them and corrected. I said, "No, we're not going to do that here. This is not what we're about, because you think it's funny or you think that is what you watch and as you're watching these videos, it is not who we are." So ladies, it is crossing over. And unfortunately, it's about money. At the end of the day, it's not about caring about who we are, that we are fearfully and wonderfully made by God and to be respected and loved and cherished. No, they just want to make money. They don't care who is damaged as this is happening. And but for me, I make sure that even when I go back and I tell my brothers back home and my nephews and nieces that they're not allowed to watch videos like that. Because this is not who we are. This is not how we were raised. This is not what our parents taught us. And that we have to stay true to who we are and not listen to those music, because we know it's not edifying. It doesn't add no value to your life. It only denigrates you. And now here you are calling your brothers and sisters that are from America the N-word and thinking it's normal. So it saddened me that was happening, but that is what's happening today. Again, we have to like you said, that we should make sure that it comes from us, Athena, that we should be the one making that move. We should be the one making that difference in our own homes and making sure that we talk to our children and tell them that no, this is not part of our culture. This is something else. Somebody else is selling this to us and we're buying it. But we were not going to buy it here. I'm hoping that is what we can do, as brothers and sisters in this space, that will make sure that we tell our children that no, this is not our culture. This is not how we're supposed to talk to each other or refer to each other, especially our women, African women. Oh my goodness, she gave birth to the world. I said, you know how powerful you are. You give birth to the world. And now they're denigrating you with music by your own people, by your own boys and your own men, and think it's okay. It is not okay. It is not okay, because then you're allowing other people to look at you that way.
And what a lot of times what the youth and we can say people, but mostly youth don't realize is the verbiage, the language, the lifestyle, the drugs, the oversexualization. A lot of this stuff, the people who are rapping about it, they don't even do that. Some of these people come from 2-parent homes, good homes. They were like the life that they're rapping about, the image that they're portraying, they don't actually do in their real life. We're going to go to this video from Future talking about lean and the fact that he actually doesn't even use it. So let's cue that video.
Future regrets his influence on Juice WRLD, and the reason why will truly shock you. One of the first things that Juice WRLD told Future when they met up to make their 2018 record World on was that Future had influenced him to try lean. Juice WRLD told Vulture.com, "That's the first thing I told him." He was just like, wow. He kind of apologized. Future later reacted to this situation in an interview with Rolling Stone magazine, saying, quote, "When he told me that, I was like, oh what have I done? It really bothered me. It bothered me a lot. More than I thought it would bother me when he told me that. How many other 6th graders did I influence to drink lean? This really messed me up for a minute. It's all I could think about. Like, damn, what have I done? What have I done to other people?" Regardless of his habits, Juice WRLD was one of the best to ever do it. It will be remembered as such.
And so more accountability is definitely needed. More truth is definitely needed. More authenticity is definitely needed. I saw over in the chat, some people were talking about, what about the parents? Why are parents letting them listen to this music? Listen, I'm only gonna speak for myself. I was young once. My mom didn't know what I was listening to. You, as a parent, you can make sure that you listen to all the appropriate things in the car. You can put on, what do they call it? Explicit types of blocks on your child's phones. You can take the TVs out your house. They still got to go to school and their friends is listening to it. They still got to ride the bus and their friends is listening to it. They still see YouTube. Like, it's everywhere. Athena, how has music influenced you growing up? So I think I remember you saying you're 33, so you come from a different era of music than I do. So let's do that. Tell me what you're listening to right now, and then tell me how music has influenced you.
Well, I have a very eclectic musical taste. I am from the Caribbean, so obviously reggae and dancehall is a very big influence from there. I also listen to classical music. I listen to hip hop. I listen to pop. I listen to ratchet music. I'm going to sit here and be honest on the panel. I do like some of the artists that we have in question. I do listen to Cardi B. I do listen to Megan Thee Stallion. But I think the difference for me, though, is it's just entertainment for me. And because I'm not living in that lifestyle or culture, I'm not as, I guess, susceptible to that. I think what happens, especially with children, or depending on the environment, if your environment is conducive already to poverty, to drugs, to baby mama, baby daddy culture, the things that the music is promoting, I think it makes you more susceptible to fall into the influence and the trappings of the music more so than if you're not. That's just not what my lifestyle or upbringing was about. This music, what I will say is I've definitely seen a stark negative contrast to what we're listening to now. Even though I cherry pick which songs I listen to, I remember I was listening to a Sexy Red song and I was like, wow, are we really getting that descriptive, like sexually and body parts and all of that? Are we really going to that level to talk about, you know, buttholes and different kind of diseases and, you know, not caring about love or anything? I just want the D and that type of stuff. So yeah, I think it's getting worse. I don't think, and to me, there's a difference between artists' creativity and you just trying to be like as nasty and violent and raunchy as possible. What I do like about Megan Thee Stallion is that even though her lyrics, depending on what you listen to, might be questionable as well, there is an artistry there, there's a rhyme scheme there's a flow, there's wordplay there. I can appreciate that versus it really looks like with some of the artists, Sukihana, you're just picking somebody off the street that can a lot of these artists aren't even writing their own lyrics. It's a whole other thing as well. You're just picking somebody off the street, putting them half naked and be like, all right, rap this and like package that product to us.
Thank you so much for that. If you're just tuning in, this is Fly Nubian Money. You can catch us Monday through Friday at 1:00 p.m. Eastern. If you text the word Queens, QUENS, to 87948, you can also get notified so that you know when we go live every Monday through Friday, 1:00. If you miss us live, you can also catch us on Spotify. Make sure that you search for the word Fly Nubian Money and you can find us there. You can also get free resources, courses, and more if you go to the link down there, flynubianmoney.com. Thank you so much to everybody who is here. Thank you to my queens on the panel and those of you over in the chat. If you have any questions or you would like our opinion on anything, this is the time to throw it over in the chat and we will try to get to your questions. Aisha, you actually brought up a good topic when you were talking about how the American music, if you will, is spreading over into the continent. We see a trend where women are influenced by hip hop, often referring to themselves with negative and or derogatory claims. You said you're starting to hear the N-word, you're starting to hear different things. Were these types of conversations, wordplay, usage over in that area before hip hop music, or would you say American hip hop music has influenced that change?
Definitely, the culture has influenced that change. That was something that I was never privy to growing up back home. As a matter of fact, a lot of the words that they use are foreign to me. I was like, what does that mean again? I have to actually find out what it means because that is not kind of language we use back home. And we still don't. Anyway, my part of where I'm from, but the youth are the ones that are now using that. The older people my age, we don't talk like that, or we don't even know what those things mean or those words mean, because we were not raised that way. And the reason those words, I think, are not becoming mainstream again is because definitely pop music, the music that we have from here, some of the young ones that come to school here, they study here, they go back home, they take it with them, and then now watching it from YouTube or going online, they can have easy access to it, and then they watch it over and over again because the beats are beautiful. Because as Afro people, we have such incredible talent when it comes to music and the beat, but the question is the words that we use. We never spoke those kind of words before. The word with the N-word, I learned about it when I came to the United States many years ago. But of course, now that I'm here for many years, now I hear it more often. So it saddens me that before it was very rare, but now it's becoming mainstream back home. It's like, wow, this is unacceptable. And do you know that as we were driving, when I was back home visiting just a few months ago, there was a bus that drove by as we were driving, and literally the company name was with the N-word spelled Nigga. I said, do they know what that means? Do they understand what it means? But I think because they think it means something good, something positive, because that is how they understand it back there, thinking we live in such a flashy life, it's fun. The only part that you will never see is the part that is derogatory, meaning the showing your body and your parts. That is not allowed. They will not allow you to show that. In the northern part of Nigeria, you can see that common, like showing body parts naked. You're not allowed to do that. They will not allow that. But in some other parts of Nigeria, they might do that because they're a little bit more, we'll say, traveled. They're more well-traveled. But in my part, they will not show that. You have to see that underground. Like one of the comment was made, that you do that underground. We know these things happen. We understand it, but it is not allowed to be mainstream. So when I saw that bus pass by, and I know it's because they don't understand the ramification or the weightiness of what that meant, because they thought when they see the pop music that it's normal. I think that's what the way they like to live their life. They're happy, they're enjoying themselves, not knowing that no, for us, it's an insult. Let's not use those words or put it on buses to say that's our company's name. So really, it's truly becoming a problem. When I went, I was like, wow, this is interesting. This is not what we're used to. But I'm grateful, though, in that we don't have it on mainstream media back home where you can watch them showing casually girls doing things that are inappropriate or too overly sexualized. That is not acceptable. Up till today, that is not something you can see if you go back home and watch TV. Not acceptable. So I'm grateful that we still have that.
I wish we had that here. Dr. Alicia, so I'm going to make sure I set myself up for this question right. So it says, are there cultural stigmas within the Black community that might make it acceptable for what we're seeing and hearing? Because a lot of times when we're watching content or we're listening to songs or music, RJ, I am going to get to your question. I just want to ask Alicia this question. I'm going to come to your question right next. We're watching, we're listening, we're hearing. And then when we have a conversation like this, sometimes you hear somebody say, let people do what they want to do. The younger generation used to do it. The N word is R word. It's okay if I want to call somebody B. Are those cultural stigmas in our community that make those things okay? Like, why do we do that? Why do we say it's okay? It's not a big deal. If that's what they want to do, that's the younger generation. We listen to Luke. Like, why do we do that? Or what is that?
Okay, yeah. Let me put a pin in that question real quick, because that video with Future, I mean, he felt really guilty. I want to comment on that because he really felt guilty, and I wonder what he's doing about it. Like, when you realize and you look back at your behavior and you see how someone lost their life because of how powerful you are in influencing other people, what is Future doing right now to change that? Like, that's my question. That's my challenge to all of us. Like, we are powerful people and we have an impact on the people around us. And in a lot of ways, in a macro level, these artists have a huge influence on the public. So now that you know this, now that Future know this and other artists know this, like, what are they doing? Like, I challenge all of us, including these artists, to really think about what to do with that guilt, because feeling guilty is appropriate. That makes sense. But to get over feeling guilty is to right the wrong. So my question is, what are you going to do about that? So I love that clip right there, because he was really, you could see the guilt in his face. Also, Athena, I agree with you. Yeah, these songs are so catchy. The music and the beats and all of that, it's like you can really get down. Like, there's a lot of artistry that comes into hip hop music. It's creative. It's something you have never heard before. But if you stop and listen to the lyrics that's behind the really great beats and the musical part of it, you start realizing, oh my goodness, how could you not be affected by these lyrics? And when you stop and think about it, then you can have a nice conversation about how it has an effect on you, which really leads into Dr. Lene, your question is that and also the question from RJ. I see his question in there. Like, with my children, I'm realistic. I understand that I cannot cut them off from society, right? I can put limits on what the type of information they consume, but I am realistic in knowing that I can't stop them from listening to it. So if I see my children, any one of my children, listening to lyrics that is incongruent with our values, I have a conversation with them about it. I say, what do you think about what that person just said? And I'll stop. It's a teachable moment for me and for them to be able to say, okay, what do you think about that? Like, tell me what you think. And if parents have that conversation with our children, that's how you fight it, because it's not going to have an impact on your subconscious mind if you are consciously, on a conscious level, thinking about your thinking, thinking about what's coming into you. And if you have a conversation with teenagers and all consumers of this music, they will tell you, they will say, I think that's really terrible. Good grief, I can't believe this person treats themselves that way. If anything, as parents, raising the question, this video that we're doing right here on YouTube, it's just raising awareness of these concepts. Have a conversation with other people. What do you think about this? Is this who and what we are? Have you noticed that our images are controlled and very derogatory? What do you think about the misogynistic perspective in the lyrics of music, all rap music. I have yet to see a lot of it that's promoted in media. You know, the lyrics of those music, it's hatred toward women. I mean, it really is. And internalized misogyny is what we see. A lot of rap artists, female rap artists, just have this sort of hatred that you are just this one note. And having these types of conversations is how we combat all of this cultural stigma that you're talking about.
Great. Thank you so much. RJ, so RJ's question was, my question is, do you think younger folks in my generation should be encouraged to listen to music that my parents were raised on? Absolutely. Yes. I think that there is something in passing down music from generation to generation. One, you don't lose, right? If I talk to somebody right now and be like, who is Luther Vandross? They won't know. Like, y'all don't know who Luther Vandross is? Y'all know who the five, like, have you watched the 5 Heartbeats? Like, what do you understand about music? The other thing is they're listening to this music today and they don't even know that they're remakes. Like they're what do they call it? What is it called when they samples? They're samples. Yes, they're sampling old music. So this song that you're grooving to that you think is the stuff, that's from like 10, 15, 20 years ago. So to have a good understanding of music, but also old music is old music. You can learn something. You're going to hear something different. You're going to feel something. So yes, I do think that. And then the other question from Danette, how do we fight against negative rap music as a community without being accused of practicing censorship or stifling an artist's creativity or messing with someone's money? Athena, how would you like to answer that question?
How do we fight against negative rap music as a community without being practicing or messing with someone's money? Listen, money is going to go where it finds value and where money is a reflection of people and their values. So we can't control messing with somebody's money. What we can control is, as a people, what we decide to do. There are artists, R&B artists, rap artists, hip hop artists that push a positive message, that have positivity, that does not get as much shine. I know when I was attending A.B.C., D1 was an artist that was there and that is doing a lot of positive things. Rhapsody is another artist that is doing a lot. So it really is a reflection of us as a people. And that's why I said we have to take accountability for what we indulge in and promote when. So if we were to say as a group, you know what? We are only going to support artists that have positive messages and images. We are only going to support artists that reflect certain music, and we're going to put our streaming time and our dollars behind that. Guess what these record companies would do? They would switch it up real quick. They would switch it up so fast. You'd be like, how did they even do that? Right? Now, every once in a while, artists will break through on creativity. So I'm even thinking of an artist like Missy Elliott. Such a huge Missy fan. I'm going to see her on tour next month, by the way. So I'm really excited about that. Busta Rhymes, okay? And not to say that they didn't have content that was salacious, because Get Your Freak On is definitely salacious. 1 Minute Man is definitely salacious, but it was not on the level of the, intense, graphic, sexual nature that we have now. What I do miss about hip hop is more so when what things were implied or innuendo. So even if you liked a song, unless you were of that age or you knew what that was, it kind of went over your head. Like some of the songs I listened to from back in the day. So like I was listening to Mariah Carey's Honey. If you listen to the lyrics, I'm like, oh my God, this song is totally about X, Y, and Z. But I didn't know because I was a child, but maybe it was good that it was innuendo. So the adults knew what it was, but the kids didn't. So I think we need to merge back to that. And I think we need to put our focus and attention on artists that we support as a community. But like I said, this issue is a community issue, and we have a hard time galvanizing behind anything. So until we galvanize in that way, we'll continue to be oppressed.
I like that. Aisha, what music are you listening to today? What kind of music do you listen to?
I listen to spiritual music.
Okay. What kind of music? Do you have children?
Yes, I do.
What kind of music do your children listen to? Do you let them listen to hip hop? Do they listen to hip hop?
No, I don't let them listen to hip hop music. My son does listen to rap. He likes Kendrick Lamar and some of the artists in that genre. So but I talk to him about it. We talk about it. I said, so what kind of lyrics are you listening to? What are the words? And sometimes he'll laugh about it and tell me, yeah, this is, but I say, well, I hope that you understand that music does affect you. So be careful what you listen to. But I'm like Dr. Alicia. I know that they will be exposed at school. I am very realistic about it. It's just to have that conversation consistently about that. But in my house, I listen to Christian music, and they didn't make fun of me. Oh Jesus, because they make fun of me all the time, but that's okay. But they understand that that's important to me. That I value what I listen to, and they pick it up. They listen as they listen at home. They're hearing that the word of God is important, and as you're listening, because I say we are in this world, but not of this world. As you listen to this, it's going to happen, but know also who you are and what you're about, so that way you have that balance, so you're not off. But for me personally, I listen to, really spiritual music. That's what I love. I used to love country music and the old hip hop, Luther Vandross, and all those people, Michael Jackson. But now that I'm older, it's just Christian music that I listen to and allow them to listen to their music. My daughter, on the other hand, doesn't listen to any music. She's 12 years old. She doesn't have no iPhone, none of that. She doesn't listen to any music. She just does her little young girl stuff, and that's it. She doesn't know any of these artists. She doesn't know any of them because we just don't listen to those artists here. So that's the things I'm listening to right now.
It's almost, and we're almost in a place where you can't listen to music, but we know you're not going to listen to music. We know you're going to listen to music. We know you're going to go out and enjoy yourself. We know that there's going to be a variety of different musics. And we know that as parents, we have some level of control over the music that they listen to for a small period of time, because they will eventually not be under our rules, not be under our house, and they will listen to the music. They will see the videos. They will see the BBLs. They will hear about the drugs. They will see it. It will be pushed down their throat. It's inevitable, right? Dr. Alicia, what would you say to do, or what advice would you give to someone, whether they're a young person or an adult, who does not want the trauma of the music, of the visuals, of the words, of the negativity, of the misogyny? How do we operate and live and function in a world where it's just around us everywhere we go?
Yeah, I'm not certain about the trauma of listening to that music, but I do think that I think energy goes where your attention is. And I think that you just get in tune with who and what you are. You didn't ask me what kind of music I like. I enjoy like medicine. I listen to a lot of medicine music because I like to spend times with Native and Indigenous populations because I think they got it right. And I incorporate that into my life. Like everything around me has a symbolic meaning of something that I want to cultivate in myself and bring out into the open. I mean, I do believe that all of us are gods. We're all gods. We all create. All of us, especially women, are the wonderful creators. And we can plant the seed on how we we can plant the seeds in our life today about how we want our world to be. And you have to make an agreement, with yourself. So you make an agreement that, you're going to surround yourself with things and ideas that reflects who and what you are. And, I think that we have to keep those things in mind because it works. It can't not work because we know it works. If it didn't work, there wouldn't be so much attention placed on controlling the minds of Black people. You don't have to really care. Who cares about what we do as long as they control these images about how we are seen? These images are seen. We got to keep in mind, this is an election year too. How many hip hop artists do you think they're going to lean on to come out and tell us who to vote for and who not to vote for? I mean, we know that it's powerful and the music is powerful. I mean, I'm thinking about, think about like Bob Marley. Remember when Bob Marley got all into political things? I mean, he was dangerous because he had the eyes of the masses and the ears of the masses, and he used his platform to talk about social issues. I mean, there's such beauty and such comfort in music. I mean, even in the civil rights civil rights era, music was so important in captivating and catching the feelings of what everybody was going through. So it is extremely powerful. And we have to understand how powerful that is and just use your brain. I mean, have some critical thinking skills. I mean, we have in this video laid out the formula. We have laid out the theories. So now you can listen to this and go on without your life and see how the data fits what we've talked about today, how these images are the controlling images of Black men and Black women. I mean, the stereotypes of Black men is also portrayed in this. And I don't know what that feels like for men. We don't have any men here, but maybe they could, weigh in on this. How does it feel for them to be able to see themselves this way? I know how it feels to see my husband and my son portrayed in this way that has nothing to do with who and what they really are. So, I mean, I don't even know if that answers your question, but that's kind of what I had on my heart to talk about, about how we can take control. I mean, the thing is that so many of us I get it. I totally get it. We got to get up. We got to go to work every day. We got life things, adulting things happening in our life. How much time do we have to stop and to think and to reflect? Not very much. And maybe that's the rat race of it all. Like, we're trying to put food on the table and we're living, all of us are living our lives and have issues that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. We don't have time to sit and protest, what's going on with us. But, I think we owe it to ourselves to give ourselves self-care and to really stop and think at some point to focus on what we want in our lives. And it's right there in our grasp. We can do and become anything that we want to do and become. So,
all right. So I'm going to go back to this comment from Sela Saint, and it says, "You can't call your." Actually, I'm going to read a couple of them. Let's be clear: hip hop is a whole counterculture. Rap is the derivative commercialized musical genre people are complaining about, but the distinction between hip hop music and rap needs to be made.
So true.
You can't call yourself fly and demonize hip hop as a whole at the same time. It's very hypocritical when the word fly came from hip hop culture. So let me just address that.
Right.
First of all, nothing is ever demonized. We're not demonizing hip hop culture, the hip hop culture or rap. We're saying be accountable, be responsible for what you're saying and what you're doing as an industry, because it matters, right? It counts. If you're talking about Molly Percocets and you're making it a glamorized thing and you're then turning around and feeding that to the Black community, that's not what hip hop means. That's not what it started as. That's what hip hop started as and what it meant when it started before it became commercialized has changed. And what it has turned into is not acceptable. So it's not demonizing, it's holding accountable, which for some reason Black people have a hard time doing. When something is wrong, we need to say that this is wrong. We need to say, treat us better. We need to say, make better music for our children, or we need to take our dollars and go spend money somewhere else. So demonizing, holding somebody accountable is not demonizing. It's saying, I see you, respect us, respect the culture, respect Black people. Okay, so just wanted to be clear on that. We have 2 minutes. So we're going to make this really, really quick. We're going to go around the room very quickly, tell people where they can find you, how they can support you, and then we're going to go ahead and get out of here. We'll start with you, Aisha.
Thank you, Dr. Lene. You can reach me at aisha@rverzi.com. That's my name, Aisha @Verzi, VIRZI.com. Or I'm also on IG at Aisha Verzi, one word, GFI, which is Global Financial Impact. That's my where you can reach me. Thank you.
Awesome. What about you, Dr. Alicia?
Oh, okay, I'm unmuted. Okay. Hey, everybody. My name is Dr. Alicia. If you're ready to take control of your life, you can reach out to me, make some changes in your life. You can contact me at coachingwithdralicia.com. I work with couples. I also work with individuals and families. You can fill out my intake and I will reach out to you. If you want to follow me on social media, the best platform is Instagram at Coaching with Dr. Alicia.
Great job. And last but not least, Miss Athena Gardner.
Hi, everyone. It was so lovely to contribute to this discussion today about hip hop. My name is Athena Gardner. I'm a CPA and women's wealth coach. I help women level up financially. If you're a woman and you're interested in doing that, you can find me at wewealthwomen.com, on all social media at wewealthwomen, and listen to me on the We Wealth Women podcast on Apple, Spotify, and iHeart.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am Dr. Lene Javette. I am a monetization strategist as well as a business coach. I help Black service-based entrepreneurs who package and sell their expertise to brand their brilliance and triple their revenue. This is Fly Nubian Money. I'm going to say it again, Fly Nubian Money. And you can catch us at flynubianmoney.com if you are interested in getting some free financial resources, courses, or other things that are over there. If you want to be notified when we are online live every Monday through Friday at 1:00 p.m. Eastern, you can text the word Queens, Queens, to 87948, and you will be notified when we are live. You can also go to Spotify and search for Fly Nubian Money if you would like to listen to us on the go. Today has been a great day. We always appreciate you guys for tuning in, giving us your feedback. And you know what? Today I'm going to give a special shout out to our producers that do the stuff on the back end, that bring up the slides and make sure that your questions come up on the screen. So we want to give a shout out to our actual production team as well. But again, thank you so much for tuning in on today. We will see you guys tomorrow. Remember to stay blessed, be Black, and be one. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.
And stuff like that. I try to stay in the 5 a.m. club. I was not in the 5 a.m. club this morning. I was in the 6 a.m. club because my wife's boot camp slowed down, and she I guess they had their graduation or something. So I don't have to get up and be out of the house by 5. So I sleep until 6 now, which is quite wonderful. And anyway, so I got up and I was listening to what's going on in the financial world and what's happening in financial news. I like to try to stay on top of that as much as I can. And one thing that I saw that was really interesting that I think is an important kind of economic consciousness exercise that we can start the day off with, because I actually have a whole other topic I was going to hit, but this comes to mind. How many of you have heard about the population issue? Has anybody, give me a yes if you've seen the discussions that have occurred about basically the world's population is not growing fast enough. Has anybody seen that? Especially in places like Europe and Japan and other places, the one of the challenges that they have is that people are just not having babies anymore, and there's I guess this what they call, I guess, the replacement rate, where they need a certain number of newborn babies to make up for the people that are dying, and what they're finding is that the numbers are not aligning, that the number of replacement people is not high enough to replace the people that are dying. So what happens in a country when you don't have a high enough birth rate is that your productivity drops. It's a wealth thing. Your wealth in your country drops because a lot of your wealth is related to productivity. Productivity comes from having young people getting up and busting their butt, going to work, making things happen. So here's what I want to kind of reflect on for a minute. And I think this is really, 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 to me, very telling. I literally came to this conclusion today. So let me ask y'all this other question. How many of you are old enough to remember when it was the opposite? When all of the discussion was in the other direction, where they weren't talking about not having enough people. They were saying that we have too many. Anybody remember that? You only got to go back like 20 years to find a time where the whole conversation was completely different. The discussion was not, how do we replace people? We don't have enough humans. Oh my God. It was, the population's growing too much. It's going to explode. We can't feed everybody. And then you have people like Bill Gates, going around, and they were like going to African countries and trying to convince African people to have fewer kids. And they were introducing, and it was mostly sort of, it had a little bit of a feminist angle to kind of tell the women, like, hey, you don't have to have kids. Like, you can be in the factory working. You could be next to Massa all day, like making a minimum wage instead of actually being with your children. And I really fell for it. I was listening to that and I was hearing them tell us how we were going to have too many people and that I guess people will be falling off the edge of the earth or something because maybe the earth is flat. I don't know. I'm kidding. And it would just be too much and we'd all just die from starvation. So I just find, isn't that fascinating though? I mean, let's just reflect on that for a moment. I promise this gets back to the economics and really I want us to go to the higher purpose of really understanding the difference between God's plan, your plan, and Massa's plan. Yeah, in fact, let's put it in that order. You have Massa's plan, your plan, and God's plan. And here's what I want to go, here's what I want to dig into. I think it's so interesting that some of the so-called smartest scientists on the earth 20 years ago were telling you that our biggest problem population-wise was that we were going to have too many people. Now those very same scientists, just a few years later, are saying the exact opposite. They're now saying that we don't have enough people. And so even in big countries like China, which there are things to admire about their leadership, things to not admire. They had that for many years. They had their biggest problem was, oh my God, people are having too many babies. There's too many Chinese babies being born. So let's impose what they called the one-child rule, where they literally made it a law that you can only have one kid. So people are like, oh, okay, well, we want to help China, so we're going to have fewer children. And then suddenly they're like, oh my God, whoa, wait, slow down, reverse the bus. Now we don't have enough babies. What are we going to do? Now they're going back and they're trying to convince people to start having kids again. And I don't know if this is not confusing to you, then it should be because it's weird. So here's my point. Okay, so Africa has a massive advantage in this arena in terms of national productivity and economics, largely because there were a lot of Africans who did not listen when Massa showed up, with a Bible and a couple of dollars in a bowl of soup and said, you need to have fewer kids. There are a lot of Africans who still kept having babies because I think that they inherently understood that maybe God's plan is for you to have kids and for you to prosper. And again, I'm not trying to get hyper religious or anything like that. I don't even go to church. So I'm very spiritual, but I'm not religious. So you ain't talking to Dr. TD Jakes. That's not who I am. I love TD. I like TD. I think TD Jakes is a wise man, but I'm not trying to be him. I can't be him. It's impossible. What I am saying though is that I think that one of the strengths that we have as Black people, by the fact that we are spiritual, is that when you are connected to the universe, to God, to the higher purpose, which really is what economic elevation is all about. That's what consciousness is all about. Sometimes you just know when something just don't add up. So, sometimes you say, they're telling me I need to do this, but it just doesn't make sense. Let me know if you know what I'm talking about. And that's an instinct. That's an instinct. I think the instinct popped out, for example, during the pandemic. I'm not telling you guys what you should have thought during the pandemic. I'm not judging whether you got the jab or not. I promise you I'm not. But isn't it fascinating that now that that pandemic is over, you're starting to see a whole bunch of people do a whole 360, like Chris Cuomo. Well, I used to say ivermectin was a horse tranquilizer and I cussed people out because they used it and thought they were crazy. Now I apologize. I was just wrong. Oh my God, I was dead wrong. He's literally doing that. Dr. Fauci's in these hearings now. Again, I'm not telling you what you should think, but I am telling you that what my wife and I did, because my wife and I are both spiritual. We my wife lives deep in the spiritual realm. She's into metaphysics, and I go with her to that place because I respect that. We just said, okay, when the pandemic started, we said, okay, let's just sit back and watch. Let's just really try, because we don't trust the government on that level. We don't hate. We're not conspiracy theorists. But I know that there are conspiracies. I mean, it's been proven. If you look throughout history, there have been many, many conspiracies where the goal is to control people. Hey, again, Massa's plan. Massa always got a plan for you. Rockefeller had a plan for the public education system. He clearly stated, he said, I don't want a whole nation full of people thinking for themselves. I need a whole nation full of people that are going to get up and go to work every day. So there are always people who operate on that higher level that are playing chess because their consciousness is different from the rest of us. They're looking down at us as a collective instead of sort of being in the trees. They're not in the trees. They're not one of us. They're up here. So they're managing the bulk of us. Do you understand? So to some extent, and this is the beast of capitalism, you become kind of a commodity. So here, let's circle back to the whole population control issue. I would argue that part of what was going on in terms of them telling people to stop having babies was probably driven in part, at least in the United States for sure, driven by this idea that said, if we can get more mothers to come out of the house and come to work every day, then guess what? Our national productivity goes up, which means we make more money. Again, not to say there's anything wrong with women working. I mean, I support all of that. That's fine. But but what I really support is you doing what works for you, what makes sense for you. Because I don't think that we should just forget about our kids. Because I think that our children are a form of wealth that we often neglect because we're so busy going off and making that little tiny ass paycheck that you're getting paid at that factory. And in fact, actually, in other areas where I think social movements were used to manipulate capitalist outcomes was actually also, let's just, since we're talking about feminism or women and things like that, I do know for a fact that there was a time when they were trying to make more money and they were trying to get women to buy cigarettes. So what they did was one of the marketers, he said, I got this uncle in Germany who's struggling for money. His name is Sigmund Freud, and he understands the subconscious mind. So what he said was what Freud suggested was he said, you can manipulate the subconscious mind to get women to smoke cigarettes by realizing that the cigarette can be shaped as a phallic symbol. It is a symbol of the man's power because it's kind of shaped like a penis. So if you use certain messaging, you can convince women that they're taking power from men by smoking cigarettes. That even though one has nothing to do with the other, but by smoking the cigarette, it's an act of defiance where you've taken away the power of the male by taking away his genitalia. And it worked. It worked. And what happened was they would have these big feminist marches and rallies where they would all be on the little parade thing smoking cigarettes. So the corporations, they didn't care about women's suffrage and all the other core issues behind feminism. They just wanted to sell more cigarettes. And so to some extent, my point is to say that you really want to think about these things. And this is why I encourage you to always know the difference between your plan, God's plan, and Massa's plan. I believe that my plan definitely supersedes Massa's plan. I don't care about Massa's plan. I want to spot it and eliminate it so at least we can get to my plan. But then really my plan is limited because my plan can't match God's plan. Sometimes God has a plan for you that is bigger than the plan you have for yourself because you can't see on God level consciousness. God, they say God lives in the sixth dimension. I can only go up to the fifth dimension. I can't go up to the sixth dimension. So God lives and that's just me speaking mathematically. One day I'll bore you and explain what I'm saying with that. But literally, I know that God lives here and I'm sort of here and I'm trying to elevate as much as I can and connect to that. But I really do believe that God's plan is something that's greater than the plan that you can have for yourself because God lives outside of you. And so when I think about my own life, and I think about the dreams I used to have and the plans that I had to achieve those dreams. When I was 23, 24 years old, I had all these big goals and all these things I wanted to accomplish. And what was interesting to me as I look back on that is that the more I untethered myself from Massa's plan, because remember, Massa got a plan for a black man. Tell me if you know what I'm talking about. But Massa he has a lot of plans for black boys. When before you're born, they already have a plan for you. The first plan is to try to abort you, right? Make sure you're not even born, and then the other plan is to miseducate you or leave you uneducated. Maybe you fill up the prison so that they can make money from you in prison, or at the very least, at the very least, they can make money off you if you fall for these NBA, NFL dreams and end up working for Massa, whatever. So you live this life of struggle where other people are benefiting economically from your existence. That's Massa's plan. I believe Massa has a plan for every black boy in America. So fortunately, I was able to break away from Massa's plan and go to my plan. But what I realized is even going to my plan was limited. I untethered from Massa's plan by sort of saying, okay, no, this is who I really want to be. I don't want to be who you want me to be. I'm going to be who I want to be. And that required an act of rebellion. But then when I became more spiritual, I realized, wait a minute, God's plan was bigger than Boyce's plan, because Boyce's plan was limited by what Boyce believed he can do. It was limited by my habits and preconceived beliefs of what success even meant. I didn't even know what success was when I was planning my plan for success, right? So as I learned what success was and what was really out here, and I began to get more exposed to the possibilities that existed in this world, and then sometimes by being rejected from the things I actually thought that I wanted, I started to see, whoa, wait a minute, there's so much more out here that I didn't even know about. I couldn't plan for this because I didn't know this was even there. So if I were to go back in time and talk to myself 30 years ago, I would say, you know what, just keep working hard and doing your best, be free, be thoughtful, and be a good person. And then you're going to get to where you're supposed to be. You're going to get someplace special, but it's so special, so unique, and so different from what you can even visualize that you won't know it until you see it. And so now, as I've manifested, or I've, and I'm wherever I am right now, I really do feel that way. I didn't achieve my wildest dreams. I went beyond that to places I didn't even know existed. So what I would say to you is figure out the difference, right? Just know that Massa has a plan for you, and it involves, like, go to school, get a good job, and let us barely give you enough money for you to survive until you get too old to work anymore, and then you move on. But I don't think that's really what you're meant to do. And then also the other piece beyond that is going back to the whole conversation about population. I think that the Africa is going to benefit. I know that Africa is going to benefit economically because they have population growth during the time where all these so-called smart white people were going around the world telling them to have fewer babies. And those are the people, again, that say, you know what, we're spiritual, we're connected to something bigger. We have these things called intuition. Maybe our melanin just makes us naturally intelligent about certain things. And there's something that just says to me in the gut of my soul, in right here in my heart, I don't know why, I can't defy it with the science, but something tells me that actually my children are an asset, and that it's okay for me to want to have kids, that family is valuable. And in fact, there are very few places on earth where family is more valuable than Africa. Africa, if you study Nigerian culture and things like that, and just really any culture in most parts of Africa, you'll find that family is really, really important. Much more so than America. Americans, we kind of lose some of that. We forget how valuable our families are and how important they are. We do. And I think also, Again, this is part of Massa's plan, because if they can detach you from the family, then they can control you with the government and with the corporation. Just look at some of the social policies that they implemented in the Black community. If you have a man in the house, then you don't get your welfare check. So the welfare check becomes the replacement for the man. And then you see what's happened with our families. And now what happens is that when you don't have that unity of family to support you and protect you, then everybody's out here struggling on their own. Everybody's out here drowning as an individual because you would have been strong as a collective, and the collective was chopped into pieces, because it's much easier to exploit a detached, disconnected group of people than it is to exploit a unified group of people. Another example where they do this in the economy is labor unions. When workers are connected and defending their rights as a group, and negotiating as a group, and operating as a group, the capitalists have a much harder time extracting resources from that group, or manipulating that group. So that's why union busting is kind of a big and a popular thing. It's happening everywhere. So in terms of, if you want to know how this population thing is going, let me give you a quick assessment on this as we kind of break this down. And then I'm going to actually go into the other part of my discussion here. So right now, basically, again, the scientists are worried that we're not going to have enough babies. I think that worry is ill-conceived. I think that it's premature. I think that a few things are going to make up for that, because human beings are pretty adaptive, assuming that we don't blow each other up with nuclear war or something. That's something that could happen. And I hate to think about that, but it's true. But one is, I think that there's going to be a lot of technology that will help people live longer. And so that's going to be longer and healthier. I think that's going to happen. Number two, They said right now, a lot of countries are overcoming their population issues with immigration. This helped me really understand a little more thoroughly why the United States has such a sloppy, chaotic, ridiculous immigration policy of just opening the border and letting everybody flood in. It's gonna be a problem. It's gonna cause a lot of issues. But what does occur is that your economy is stronger when you have more people. So what they're looking at really is that the good outweighs the bad, so to speak. It does not, in my opinion, benefit the average American worker if you got millions of people coming from south of the border taking your jobs. But what happens is that the capitalists, the people that own shares of stock and run corporations, are saying, great, we have a greater labor supply, which means that we can have more productivity with a lower cost of hiring these people, right? So they're getting more for less. That's why they keep saying, oh, the immigrants are great for the economy. This is so great for the economy. It's great for the overall economy. It may not be great for you. And that's what's creating the disconnect that exists right now, where they're kind of baffled. They're like, wait, the economic numbers are really strong. Yet if you ask an average person, they keep saying that the economic numbers are bad. They keep saying that the economy's bad and that we're in a recession, but that's just not consistent with reality. And they debate this, right? And I find it hilarious they have this debate. I'm like, well, the reason that you're having this debate is not because people are just wrong or they don't know what's going on, because that's what they'll say that maybe it's the headlines. Maybe the headlines are so negative that people think the economy's bad when it's actually good. No, it's because everybody's economy ain't the same. Everybody's economy is not the same. A rich man's economy ain't the same as a poor man's economy. The economy for people who own stock, which I'm begging you all to do, is not the same as the economy for people who work for a living. That's not, y'all, we're not living the same reality. It's like we're in the same house and the heat is on the east side of the house and it's freezing on the west side of the house. We're in the same house, but it ain't the same temperature. So the workers in America are pretty much being sucked dry financially by the people at the top of the pile. That's what they're doing. They've got them addicted to buying things, no matter what. So people will go in debt in order to maintain their the lifestyle to which they've been trained to become accustomed. And then so as they're going into debt, again, auto loan debt is at an all-time high, credit card debt's at an all-time high, student loan debt's at an all-time high. Workers' wages are not going up with the rate of inflation. So people are falling further and further behind. On top of that, when you've disconnected the family unit and you've got people thinking as individuals, then you minimize their ability to survive in an ever-changing economy where the resources become a little more spread out and thin. That's what's happening. That's why Gen Zers are getting killed. It's because nobody taught a Gen Zer how to survive in this economy. You survive in this economy by working together with other people. You survive in this economy by investing. These require levels of economic awareness that are not very popular right now. Most people are not interested in becoming economically aware. They're only aware of the pain that they experience from the lack of economic awareness that has plagued them since the day they were born. That is what's happening. People are aware of how sad they are. They're aware of how broke they are. They're aware of how mad they are, but they're not aware of how to fix the problem because nobody really talks about solutions. That's not what people do. So, with that being said, the other way that they're going to overcome this whole issue with the population is robots. AI and robots is another area where, from an economic standpoint, they're going to overcome the deficiency in the population. Is they're just going to have robots everywhere and lots of AI everywhere, and that's the wave of the future. So, just as an FYI, because we're solution oriented, I do have a list of AI stocks that I sent out to a lot of you. If you haven't gotten it yet, just pull out your phone, text the word stock to the number 87948, text stock to 87948. I'll send you the AI stocks and I'll also send you links to profit alerts. I did one this morning where I talked about an investment I'm making right now in copper. And the ticker symbol for the ETF, the copper ETF that I like is CopX, COPX. So CopX. So feel free to go take a look at CopX. And if you want to really learn more about stock market investing and want to share a membership to my stock market class with your entire family, just go to drboycestockmarket.com. The first 30 days are 100% free. So you go to drboycestockmarket.com. There's hundreds of lectures, thousands of hours of material. It's easy to understand at any level. On top of that, every week I have a section called What Dr. Boyce is Buying, where I mention stocks that I particularly like based on my research. And also you can come to class in the portfolio power plays every Tuesday and ask me any question. So feel free to go to drboycestockmarket.com if you are interested. And yes, I do teach about ETFs. Absolutely. You'll know all about ETFs when you get in there. All right. So let me hop into another quick thing I was thinking about today from an economic awareness standpoint. This is a true story, and this is something that affects me dearly. So I'm gonna try to express it without being emotional. When I grew up as a as a kid, I had an uncle named Donald who was like an older brother for me. He was 8 years older than me, and he was my earliest memories were with him because when I was born, my mother was 17 and she lived with my grandmother and my Uncle Charles and my Uncle Donald and my Aunt Valeria. Uncle Charles and Uncle Donald are both dead. Aunt Valeria is still alive. And that was my earliest life. So anyway, with that said, it was downtown Louisville, Kentucky, on this street called Bowling Avenue, which now is kind of like a torn down neighborhood. I think that it's kind of fallen into significant disrepair. Not like it wasn't a rich neighborhood even back then, but now it's really bad. Anyway, so my uncle, I watched him struggle a lot. You know, he wasn't really able to really do well in life. I know that he didn't have a father figure to raise him and or train him on life and stuff like that. So he was honestly kind of a weak man. And then on top of that, he also got introduced to alcohol at an early age. You know, he was a little baby, and I guess they thought it was cute and funny. My grandmother didn't do this; it was his father that did this. So he would take him to the bar, and he thought it was adorable to watch the little baby walk around drunk. So they would give him alcohol, and he would get drunk. And unfortunately, this planted the seed for a lifelong alcohol addiction that he had later on. So if you ever want to know why I hate alcohol, that might be why, because I've seen it destroy people that I love. I've seen great men become horrible men and weak men, violent men, terrible men, embarrassing men, disgusting men because they overindulged in alcohol or drugs. Give me a yes if you've ever seen these things up close, and give me a yes if you can at least empathize and understand with why I just really think drugs and alcohol are just one of the worst things that ever happened to Black people. Not judging you if you drink. I know a lot of you do drink, and it's okay. Moderation, I get that. But really, I just don't see any. It doesn't bring good things to anybody's life, and it doesn't just destroy you economically. There's so many other ways that it harms you. Now, with that said, so my uncle went to prison. So he was my role, like he was my favorite human being on the entire planet. So imagine somebody that like when I would see him, I would get excited. I followed him around, all this stuff. And so I remember when I was 11, and I remember he went back to jail. And when I was 11, I think he was about 19, and I remember just sitting in the back seat of the car, and I remember crying, like when they said, yeah, Donald went to jail again, and I remember just kind of crying. And as I was crying, like nobody. I remember just kind of feeling like nobody cared. You know what I mean? Like this is another reason. Another thing I'm very passionate about is mass incarceration, because I remember how hurt I was, you know, because this person, like I loved him, you know, and I was sitting in the back seat just kind of crying, and nobody, I feel like nobody cared, you know, like nobody could feel what I was going through. And so anyway, I struggled in school. In like 8th grade, I remember I would sit there in the 8th grade and I would just write him letters, you know, in jail. And anyway, so oh God, I'm so sorry, guys. I didn't damn. I didn't know I was gonna have this reaction. I apologize, but I'm gonna keep going. So anyway, you know, so you know, my time with him was like really mixed. And eventually there was a point where maybe about 13 or 14, it switched. I went from being the little brother to being the older brother. Like I was the one who, like, because I remember just kind of saying, okay, this guy is struggling. I can't really follow behind him. You know how you want to look up to somebody, but you can't. You know, you can't look up to somebody who's shorter than you, so to speak. And because he was not built a certain way, and I don't know if it was his fault of his own. Like I had to kind of talk to my therapist to kind of figure out how to give him grace. But I remember in a way there was like an anger, like man, I was so disappointed in you. I needed you to be my hero, and you weren't. You couldn't be, you know. And so anyway, I kind of became the older brother. And so in my 20s, I remember him calling me. He called me. He'd call me to borrow money and stuff like that. And it was hard. It was weird, and it was more like I got to the point where I was sort of becoming more of myself, more of the person I am now. And I have a really strong father. You know, my father who raised me is a very like disciplined, determined. You know, he's a veteran. He doesn't take any shit. He believes you if you want something, you go for it, you fight for it, you don't back down, you do your best. You know, you take responsibility, and these are values that my father was giving me. He wasn't my biological father, but I love him. And anyway, so I was kind of becoming that guy, right? Whatever that guy looks like, I was becoming him. Whereas my uncle was still kind of lagging behind. And the thing about prison that really bothers me is we don't talk enough about the mental health crisis, the mental health issues of just what happens to people when they get incarcerated. We don't talk about how their children feel, you know, when their father's being taken away. You know, we have so much empathy and so much sympathy for everybody else's pain, but we don't have any empathy for our own. We don't talk about just how painful and traumatic. Think about this. I'm 52 years old. I'm a grown ass man. I'm sitting here crying as I'm reliving how I felt when I was 11. It's hard and it's embarrassing, by the way, to do this in front of so many people. But I'm gonna keep going because God is telling me to talk. So, as we got older, and I promise we got to circle this back to economics because I know this is about economic awareness, and this is why I brought this up. So, as he got older, you know, there was this constant drain of him always borrowing money. I watched him not just disappoint me, I saw him disappoint his children. I saw him disappoint my grandmother, who got older and could not keep bailing him out every time he went to jail or helping him every time he struggled. And so I learned from watching this. Like I watched this behavior, I watched this dynamic as this man who never learned how to become a man, right? He was always a little boy. And it's not so much his fault, right? Because there was no man to really show him how to be a man, right? And so he stayed a little boy even in his 20s, his 30s, and his 40s, and he would go to my grandmother, you know, when she's in her 60s and 70s, and he would borrow money. Like, you know, he wouldn't show up to help her. He wouldn't show up to help pay bills. He wouldn't show up to cut the grass. He would show up to borrow money. And he was also plagued by these mental health issues from incarceration and other things he went through, as well as drugs and alcohol. And so it got to the point where he became that relative that a lot of us have. A lot of us have a relative like that. Give me a guess if you have somebody in your family that reminds you of this, where they just can't get it together, where you just kind of feel like you can't depend on them. You can't, you know, you're going to have to bail them out. They're never going to be there to bail you out. You know, that's the dynamic. That's what happens. And these people are built like the world society builds that. Malcolm X, his bodyguard was talking about how it felt to be around Malcolm, and he started to cry. And they said, "Well, why do you feel that way?" He said, "Because Malcolm encouraged us to be men, and America wants the black male to remain a little boy." That's what he said. He said they want us to be little boys, and that's why. So if you ever see me get real pissed off when I see rappers or anybody encouraging black men to be immature and ignorant and ridiculous and backward, that's what it comes from. It's like we don't need little boys in the community. We need men. We need men that are going to lead. We need men that are going to build. They're going to want that are going to want to think strategically, not these little cartoon characters that they give us in the media. And I think that's all by design, right? Because men build things, men create things, men break down barriers, men open doors, men protect, provide all these other things. Little boys just sit there and let things happen to them. You know, they don't pay attention, or they don't try hard enough, or they give up easily, right? So long story short, I became kind of the older brother to my uncle, who became my like a little brother, who would call me and ask me for money and all that. And then one day, things just kept getting worse and worse. And then he became homeless eventually. And one night when he was homeless, and he'd go to the liquor store and stuff. And one day he got hit by a car, and I don't know if the driver says he was laying down in the middle of the street. I don't know if he was doing that or not. But that's what the driver said. And he got hit and he got dragged like 100 feet down the street. And he ended up, he didn't die. It was interesting. He had significant brain damage and he also became paralyzed from the waist down. So he ended up in the hospital getting brain surgery and spinal cord surgery at the same time. He died on the operating table twice. And so, but again, because I loved him, I came to see him and did my best to help out however I could. It was really, really hard. And so here was this guy who didn't have any health insurance, any plan for the future, like nothing was there where he could actually take care of himself in this really fragile state. And it was heartbreaking for me because again, he was my favorite person on the planet. So it's really hard. Some of you have seen this where you have to watch your favorite person on the earth suffer like in these horrible ways, just not being able to clothe yourself or feed yourself or use the bathroom by yourself, just stuff like that. And so then eventually after about 3 years, I think he eventually got an infection in the hospital and he ended up dying. And I think about his life a lot because it shaped me. I was very close to him. And it made me really think about preparation in terms of how you want your life to go. And it made me think about how many of us are not trained to prepare for things like this. He wasn't prepared at all for the expense of being in a wheelchair. There was no insurance at all on anything, and he wasn't prepared in terms of education or no saving, investing, none of that. It was like he was just kind of surviving from day to day. And I think sometimes that stress and struggle of just surviving can keep us from having the consciousness to sort of make these long-term plans and to say, okay, well, what if this happens or what if that happens? Or how do I provide for these other people in case something goes wrong in my path? And I also know that when you take all that lack of sort of awareness and you compound that with problems like drugs and alcohol, as well as mental health issues, which I think can be connected to drugs and alcohol, right? Like people will say, well, it's not the drugs that caused him to do this; it was mental health. He was bipolar, but those two things are connected, right? If you are a person who has mental health issues and you self-medicate through drugs and alcohol, then drugs and alcohol are not going to help your mental health. Like if you're already a little bit bipolar or already a little bit mentally ill, the drugs and alcohol are only going to accelerate and accentuate and worsen the pre-existing condition that is inside of you. So I think they feed into each other. So long story short, I saw this man who could have and should have been somebody's husband and father, could have and should have been an asset to his own mother, could have and should have been a role model for me. I saw him just literally deplete himself and shrivel into this broken little person that I couldn't even identify. And so what this made me think about from an economic awareness standpoint, and I think about him all the time. He died in 2012. I think about him at least 2, 3, 4, 5 times a week. What I learned from that experience is that a few things, and I'm going to lay these things out as quick as I can to help you kind of summarize this instead of me just sitting here and embarrassing myself by getting emotional like that. One is really how we raise our children is so important in terms of whether or not they're going to be assets to the family. You have to really sort of decide and be very conscious and aware of going back to the beginning, the difference between your plan and Massa's plan. At the very least, your plan, God's plan, and Massa's plan. So God has an amazing plan in store for your children. You have an amazing plan, or you should have an amazing plan in store for your children. Massa does not have an amazing plan in store for your kids. My uncle that I just described to you, the sad part about his life is that I bet you that at least 60% of you can identify with another Black male just like him. I guarantee you that there are thousands of you that are listening right now who have somebody in your family who fits that damn description. That is what we call in finance, we call that systematic. See, there's things that are what they call systematic, and then there's idiosyncratic. Idiosyncratic is like a one-off. Like it's like, okay, I had a cousin who had one leg, one ear, and had an IQ of 170. That's idiosyncratic. That's a one-off. You're not going to have another person out here like that. You're not going to meet anybody like that. But systematic is where you see this same outcome replicated thousands and thousands of times all throughout society. I mean, you don't have to, you could throw a rock and find a broken black man in America just like that. You know, I'm talking about baby daddy, you know, got a bunch of kids, can't afford to take care of the kids, no education, no preparation, no economic security, and kind of, and unfortunately been put in a position where they become a liability to the family, when that liability should have been an asset. It should have been an asset. So what I ask, and this is my friend's speech from the group Arrested Development. He's a great guy. I love this guy. I don't even talk to him that much, but I have so much respect for him. He did a documentary called The N-Word Factory, the IGA Factory. I'm not going to say the N-word because it's too early in the morning to be using words like that. But he had a documentary with that title, and I said that's a great title because what happens is that MASA's plan is to mass produce millions of young black boys that become liabilities to the community when they should have been assets. God's plan is for your son to be the hero of the family. God's plan is for your son to be strong. God's plan is for your son to be intelligent. God's plan is for your son to be a leader. God's plan is for your son to break us out of this stuff. God's plan is for your son to be a soldier. God's plan is for your son to be a winner. God's plan is for your son to be a builder. But MASA's plan is for that little black boy to be a liability and a drain on everybody else in the family. That's what MASA's plan is. MASA's plan, and this does go to economics, but this is consciousness. This is what I'm talking about, economic consciousness. This is costing you trillions. Do you understand? We've talked extensively in my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. I talk extensively about trillions of dollars in black wealth that is lost when that son who should have been an asset to you is trained to be led to believe that he's going to be nothing but a liability, ain't taking care of his kids, doesn't want to read a damn book, wants to be a thug and a IGA and a gangster or an NFL player, and doesn't spend any energy wanting to be anything that's beneficial to anybody but himself. So this guy in his 20s, 30s, and 40s, who's quicker to pick up the liquor bottle than he is to pick up a book, who doesn't want to take responsibility for anything that he creates in his life, that is a massive drain of wealth in the black community. And that is social engineering. That is by design. That is not accidental. That is not what God intended for your son. That was not God's plan. That so as hell shouldn't have been your plan. That was MASA's plan. And the reason MASA's plan won, I need y'all to listen to me. I need y'all to pay attention. The reason that MASA's plan overrides your plan and God's plan is because MASA's plan is intentional. MASA's plan is deliberate. MASA's plan was done with the highest level of economic consciousness. He thought about it. He sat down and wrote it out. They said, okay, this is how we're going to take over hip hop music so that we can control the minds of millions of black males and get them to fill up the penitentiaries and to go out here and do all these other things that will fulfill every stereotype we have of them, keep them ignorant, blind, deaf, dumb, and stupid, and destroy and manage the black community. His plan was intentional and deliberate and specific. Was your plan equally intentional? Were you equally intentional about saying to myself, I know MASA got a plan for my son. I'm going to make sure my plan is different. Let me tell you about my mama real quick. When I was 5, I've told y'all, some of y'all this story before. When I was 5, there was a white lady that was my elementary school teacher or my preschool teacher. And she sat my mother down and she said, I need you to understand how your son operates. She said, he's very active. He gets up, he walks around, he makes noise, and he doesn't follow rules very well. But she said, one day I saw him doing that and I wanted to embarrass him. So I went and I kept on teaching. I kept ignoring him as he was getting up, walking around, singing songs and talking to the other kids. And the way I was going to embarrass him was I was going to ask him to repeat back to me every single thing that I had put on the board. And she said, do you know that when I did that and he got up and walked around and did everything he normally does? And I said, okay, Boyce, I want you to tell me everything that I was just teaching everybody. She said, do you know that he told me every single thing that I had been teaching? He was listening while he was walking around appearing to be distracted. So what she said to my mother, she said that when your son gets to the public school system, they're going to try to medicate him. They're going to diagnose him. They're going to do all these things. They're going to tell you that something's wrong with him. And this lady, I'm not a person who walks around thinking that every white person tries to be evil. I don't think that way. This little white lady told my mother, do not let them put him on any medication. Do not let them diagnose him. Your son is fine. He just has a lot of energy. A lot of boys have energy, and that's it. And do you understand how critical that was when my mother years later intentionally, specifically, and really vehemently defended me when they tried to diagnose me or put me in special classes and do all these other things that would have derailed me? If my mother had not been specific and clear and intentional about pursuing her plan for me over Massa's plan for me, I would not be standing here talking to you right now. I would not be the man that I am right now. So what I'm really saying here is this. The world tends to move out of the way for people who know who the hell they are and people who know what the hell they want. So part of the reason that it's so important for you to be conscious on every level, and we talk about economic consciousness, and the economics certainly folds into this, but you got to be intentional about everything. You got to be intentional about everything. And if you don't know enough to have that clarity and intentionality, then this is where little things like meditation come into play. This is where you got to sit down and figure out who the hell you are, what the hell you want, what you want for your family, where this ship is going to go. You got to be clear. And when you are clear, the world will move out of your way. Part of the reason people don't mess with me is because they know that I'm clear. I ain't scared of nothing. I know exactly who I am. I know what I'm talking about. And you ain't gonna pump me out of nothing. And so I encourage you to understand the same thing. Because when you're not clear, what you do is you say, well, I don't really know what to do with my kids educationally. So you just hand them over to these other people, and you trust these other people who don't have your child's best interest at heart. They don't have your best interest at heart. They're thinking about other stuff. Oh, well, I don't know what I want to do financially, so I think I'll just take this job so I can pay a couple of bills. And okay, you go ahead and do that, but just know that they're not thinking about your long-term economic security. You have to understand these things. So again, I end on this final simple note. You got God's plan, your plan, and Massa's plan. So because God's plan it has more clarity and more relevance and it's more accurate than your plan because he knows more than you do, then consciousness means elevation. Elevation means you're getting closer to God. God lives inside of you. That's a fundamental belief a lot of people have. So the God is inside of you. You got to listen to that. That's where you sit in silence, you meditate, you disconnect, you think about things, process things. And then once you've done that and you gain that clarity, then you make sure that your plan got to override Massa's plan. Because Massa ain't got nothing good planned for you or your black son. Nothing. your black grandbabies. Massa ain't got no good plan for none of them. But what is your plan? What is our plan? And don't tell me all day about what white folks are doing. I don't care about that, honestly, because I truly believe that when we really know who the hell we are and what we want, nothing can stop us. Nobody can get in our way. Nobody can. And that's what I want to share with you all today. And I hope that this fit. I did not know I would end up sniveling and crying and stuff. I didn't plan on that. I was really mixed about whether or not I should talk about my uncle because I'm real sensitive about that. And honestly, that experience was so significant for me that it drives a lot of my beliefs today. I'm really, really deeply offended by what they've done to our greatest men. They've locked them up. They've ruined them. They've either locked them up physically or locked a lot of them up psychologically. And this is something I'm determined to fight against because I think that we can do better than that. I think that God meant for something better to be for us. And I think that we can go get that. So I'm going to finish up for today. Quick reminder, if you want to get reminded when we do economic consciousness every morning, just text the word morning to the number 87948. Text morning to 87948. Later on today, we're going to do the portfolio power play. We're going to I'll answer a million questions about the stock market. The stock I mentioned earlier that I'm going to buy, the ETF, I'm actually going to buy some more shares right now because the market's about to open. It's COPX, COPX, because the price of copper is expected to go up because the demand is going up, which is going to outstrip supply. And I think that's an opportunity. If you want to see other parts of the stock market or learn more and send me questions or see all the other stocks that I pick for the students, just go to drboycestockmarket.com. That's drboycestockmarket.com. The first month is free. And then I saw some of you were asking about my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. You can get a copy at drboycebooks.com. All right. So have a good day, everybody. God bless you. And I enjoyed speaking with you this morning. Bitcoin is going berserk. But that's a no-brainer. Everybody knew Bitcoin was gonna, well, everybody that paid attention knew Bitcoin was gonna do this. It's actually over 70,000 now. At some point it will cross 80, in my opinion. I believe at some point it will cross 90 and 100 and everything else. I think Bitcoin is one of the clear investments out there. Although there's nothing that's guaranteed. There's nothing that's guaranteed, and I hope you all really remember that. Never forget that, right? So even if someone says, "Oh yeah, I really, really think this is going to happen," that does not mean it's going to definitely happen. Even as a professor, I can't predict what the stock market's going to do. I can't predict what any asset's going to do. However, there is a lot of evidence to say that if something is going to explode, it's going to be Bitcoin. And also, most of the indicators in terms of where the market momentum is going is pushing Bitcoin upwards. So if you've been consistently buying, congratulations, you're probably seeing this right now. And so you're well on your way to wealth, in my opinion. And so anyway, the one thing I wanted to kind of hit on today too had to do with something that was crossing my mind. I put something on my Twitter, and I really believe this kind of thing. And I think I said something. Sometimes I say stuff in a way that irks people. I don't know, but I said, I really believe that every parent should set a high standard for their daughters, so that some guy can't impress her by taking her on a weekend trip to Atlanta. And then of course people come in and say, well, what's wrong with going to Atlanta, and why do you hate poor people? And I don't hate poor people. That's not it. I've been on many trips to Atlanta, but I really kind of I was just thinking about standards and how what you do with your kids financially really does set a standard. What they expect from you in terms of character and integrity goes a long way in terms of what they're going to expect from men that they interact with, especially your little girls. And a lot of times you just see, things that make me kind of sad as a father, like women kind of wanting, like really desiring men that just don't have good character. If you think about it, if you think about Diddy and Cassie, for example, which is kind of the talk of the town right now, there were a lot of women that were happy for Cassie to be dating Diddy. They thought she'd won the prize. They thought that she was looking good. She was in the driver's seat of her life. And girl, won the prize. You got the man everybody wanted. And that's that's just not the case. A lot of in economics we call that the winner's curse. There's something in economics called the winner's curse, and what the winner's curse is the winner's curse is where you think you won but really you lost. And it's when you compete for something that you're dreaming about, but actually you kind of have the wrong dream. And effectively, that is kind of what I see when it comes to the stuff with Diddy and Cassie and all that is like, I don't know. I mean, in hindsight, do you regret this relationship? And how would you have felt if I'd come from the future, if I'd gone into your life 15 years ago and said, don't do this, like, don't date this guy, there's going to be bad things are going to happen? Would you have said, thank you for protecting me from something that was going to harm me? Or would you have just wanted to learn things the hard way? And I just hate to see that. It really makes me sad. And so actually what I wanted to do in terms of helping you understand how these financial standards can play a part in how your children see the world, let me pull up some data for you. So because this is important. So when you're talking about setting financial standards for your daughters, let's talk about daughters in particular, right? So I know we have something similar when it comes to sons. I don't think the dynamic's the same because I don't believe boys and girls are the same. I know we have debates about, transgender and all that, but I just assume I believe that things are a little bit different. So when you talk about standards, here is some research that I found that kind of talks about what the standards actually mean and what they actually do when it comes to the quality of life, the ability of that little girl that you raised to have a healthy life. And I think about this, especially if you talk about, say, a guy like Diddy, I say, gosh, that's so interesting that this guy is known for beating up a woman and he has daughters. And I wonder how he feels. I wonder if you asked him, if you said, would you want your daughter to date a man like you? And I wonder if the answer would be yes or no. If the answer is yes, that would make you question, like, what kind of man are you? What you really would want some guy to, beat your daughter, kick her in the face right when she's trying to get on the elevator. And then if he says no, it says, well, why would you want to be the kind of man that you wouldn't want your daughter to date? Because now your daughter is going to grow up, pay attention now. Your daughter's going to grow up looking up to men like you. She's going to grow up thinking my daddy's a great guy and I want a guy like my dad. And so, so the question becomes, are you perpetuating these curses? And I think money's behind all of this, right? I think that money distorted hip hop. Money made rappers and these black men, mostly black men, into something other, and women too now. I mean, some of the female rappers, unfortunately, have kind of fallen into this trap. And so there are these people that have billions of dollars, and it's not us. We don't have billions of dollars to invest in things like this. They invest billions of dollars into these image distorting false realities of black people, where for many years you had a whole culture around complete disrespect, disregard, and harm and assault toward women. If you go back and you look at things I was writing 20 years ago, you'll know that back in 2002, 2003, I was saying that, if all these, liberation movements and Me Too movements and all that, when they eventually start to reckon and really study what's happening in the world of hip hop, it's going to be really bad for these guys. These guys are going to be hiding in a closet because they're going to dig up stuff that they did back in the 90s and the 2000s that was just clearly inappropriate. And I remember, because I remember one time when I was a professor at Syracuse, and I remember listening to the rapper Exhibit, and he had a song with Snoop Dogg. And in the song, they deliberately talked about assaulting a woman sexually and getting away with it because they were so rich and powerful. Right. And so this became the fantasy, the myth, the false reality that they were led to believe would be true. But they didn't know history. They didn't understand when Malcolm X used to say that the white man will sell you the liquor bottle and then he'll lock you up for being drunk. Shout out to Malcolm X. Yeah, his birthday was 2 days ago, and I should have said that during class, and I apologize for not bringing that up. And so really, I feel like in a way, what's interesting about some of the hip hop culture is from a financial standpoint is that they kind of have this way of lulling you to sleep, kind of have this way of making you think you're the boss, making you think you're in the driver's seat when really you're not the boss. Clive Davis is the boss, or Universal Records or Sony Music is the boss, but they want you to think you're the boss, and then you go out and you operate like you think you're the boss, and then next thing you know, consequences come, and then you're held fully accountable for every single thing that happened under your watch. And that's what I sort of see when I see these things. So let me grab this research for you guys. So one thing that they say that happens when you don't set a good standard for your daughter. Let's talk about us in terms of us being the kinds of parents that we want our children to admire in terms of, and let's start financially, right? In terms of setting those standards and why that's important. So they said that number one, when you talk specifically about the father-daughter relationship, there's a study that says that daughters who have a strong relationship with their father have an easier time with emotional health and stress management. Daughters with strong supportive relationships with their fathers tend to have better emotional health and stress management skills. These daughters typically have higher cortisol levels, which buffer against stress, leading to healthier responses to stressors in adulthood. This emotional resilience translates into more stable and satisfying romantic relationships. And I just think about maybe about 3 or 4 days ago, and I hope she doesn't mind me mentioning this, but one of my girls called me or she texted me. She said, I'm really having a bad day today. Do you have time to talk? And we got together and we talked for a while, and we talked out what she was feeling, what she was going through. And then she sent me a text saying, thank you so much. This really made a difference for me. And it made me happy because I was able to be there for her. But it really, I thought about that interaction when I read this study that the fathers, we kind of can bring something there. I don't know if it's our confidence. I don't know what it is, but we bring something that adds value. And that's a type of, by the way, that's a type of wealth, right? If you are emotionally unstable, if you can't, if you're not disciplined, or if you're constantly self-medicating because you're constantly dealing with anxiety and depression and all these other things, it's very, very hard for you to have the discipline required for you to achieve your goals, build wealth, and do anything that you want to do. And in fact, when we study in our Black Financial Therapy department in the Black Business School, what we realize is that emotionally unstable people just have a hard time building wealth because there are too many leaky buckets of pockets that can drain their wealth. Because if you're self-medicating, well, medicine costs money. If you're self-medicating through wine bottles and liquor costs money. If you're self-medicating through drugs cost money. If you're self-medicating through sex, well, bad relationships and dirty, short-term, temporary, nasty, worthless relationships with people that you're just trying to have sex with, that can cost you money. I know a woman that makes $300,000 a year who got robbed by one of her guys. She called him a hobosexual, one of the hobosexuals, which is these guys that look for rich Black women to sleep with. So they can get their bills paid. So this hobosexual took her credit card and was buying clothes for some other girl that he was messing around with. And she found out because she went through her credit card statement, right? So you can go on and on, right? There's so many different ways that emotional instability can be costly. For example, when you buy luxury items, there's studies to say that what you're really buying is your self-esteem, because a person who has a good, really strong self-worth doesn't really need the luxury item in order to feel better about themselves. Now, I'm not saying that everybody who buys a luxury item is bad or not smart or making a mistake or emotionally unbalanced. What I'm saying is that if you're emotionally unbalanced, it's easier to sell you the luxury item, because basically what I'm doing is I'm saying, you're nobody. You're nobody now. You're a regular old nobody right now. But if I give you this Gucci purse or I sell you this Mercedes, well, now you're somebody. Now you're important. Now you're looking fly. Now you're looking good. And people who don't care about impressing people that that don't matter, they keep their money in their pocket. They say, "Why would I spend money with you just to get whatever public perception you think I can earn by buying this item from you?" Do you understand? It goes back to, I kid you not, I remember when I was in college and I was invited to pledge every single fraternity, every single one of them reached out to me and asked me to join. And it wasn't because I was the coolest guy in the world. It wasn't because I was, I'm the the life of the party or anything like that. I'm not that guy. They all wanted me to be in their fraternity because I was known as the guy who had the highest grade point average of all the Black students on campus. I was known as the smart guy, even though I don't think I was the smart guy. I would say I was maybe I was the hardworking guy. Maybe I was the disciplined guy. I don't know, but I wouldn't say I was the smart guy, but I was known for that. And so when they all invited me to join and to pledge, I thought about being an alpha for a minute, and it was an interesting experience because the guy that was an alpha, I think he was honestly hitting on me, and at that time, it didn't even hit my consciousness that another man would be trying to get with me like that. It didn't even cross my brain, And then I think about 5 years later, I look back and I said, "Oh my God, I think this guy was, I think he liked me." Whoa, what do I do with that information? That's weird. Like, no disrespect. I mean, don't get me wrong. Everybody, LGBT, everybody's welcome here, but it was weird for me because I'd never been in that situation, that space, and then it made sense. I was like, oh, that's why he was calling me all the time, and just for no reason, right? So anyway, but not to say that was why I didn't want to be an alpha. My brother's an alpha, so shout out to all the alphas. And then my friend, I remember my friend that was a Kappa who tried to get me to pledge Kappa, and I was like, they kind of pretty. They got the little canes and twirling canes. I can't twirl no cane. And then there was another one. The blue, they wear the blue. I forgot with the Phi Beta Sigma. That's right. Yeah, I remember and I thought about that, because I liked the guy who invited me. His name was Daryl Van Meter. He died of a heart attack at 19 years old on the basketball court. It was crazy. I used to play basketball with Daryl, and I wasn't there that day, but one day he just died of, like, on the basketball court of a heart attack. 19 years old. I remember that day. But anyway, and then I think I decided to pledge Q, and I was going to become a Q dog. Can you imagine me as a Q dog or Mega Man, whichever one I would have been? And so I was going to pledge because my roommate was a Q, and I remember that when I kind of looked at the guys that were already in the fraternity, I felt kind of bad. I did not feel like I did not respect the guys the men that I saw. I did not see them. I remember I think in terms of thinking like an investor, one thing about thinking like an investor is that you apply this to everything in your life. An investor mindset, which is really why we're here. This is what economic awareness or financial consciousness looks like. An investor mindset means you don't look at where things are, you look at where they're going. And the thing that a lot of young people don't understand is that who you are doesn't matter. What matters is what you're becoming. What you're doing every day determines what you're becoming. That tells me where you're going. That tells me what direction your car is headed. So if you're a person that, lays in the bed all day, smokes weed and plays video games and watches Netflix, well, you're becoming, that's what you're becoming. If you're a person who gets up every day, busts their butt, you're constantly learning, you're constantly growing, you're constantly saving and investing and all this other and building, well, then we know what you're going to be in 5 or 10 years, right? Because all your life really is this accumulation of thousands of little choices that you've made along the way. So I looked at these guys and I just saw things that kind of bothered me, like they drank a lot. They drank a whole lot. And I didn't drink at all, but they would be drunk all the time. My roommate was drunk every weekend. And I just didn't feel like that was good because in the 90s, a lot of black men were going to prison. And I didn't want to get drunk and do something stupid and end up getting locked up because wasn't nobody gonna bail me out. I didn't have no plan B. And then also they did this weird thing where they had a party where they were where they picked 2 girls up on the side of the road. This is the type of stuff in our culture that I think we got to just kind of talk about because it destroys people's lives. But they picked up these 2 girls on the side of the road, and they told them that if you want to ride home, you have to do things for us at our party, if you know what I mean. And so they had this party. I kid you not, this is a true story. One girl was in one room offering one service, if you know what I mean. The other girl was in the other room offering another service. And I remember thinking, back then, I mean, I'm 20. I'm trying to figure life out, and I was like, that doesn't seem right. That does not seem good. Because I was thinking about things like diseases and all that, but even criminality, right? Somebody can come back 10 years later and say, oh, well, you assaulted me, and now you're going to prison for 30 years, or now whatever, right? So, long story short, I remember just thinking, I see a whole lot of drinking, a whole lot of whoring and a whole lot of partying, but I don't see a whole lot of studying. I don't see a whole lot of hard work. I don't see a whole lot of building here, right? And I remember, so that was the thing that kind of got me to say, I don't think this is the right move. And again, this is that part of the culture. I believe other people put this on us, and I think we have to address that because it's very anti-wealth. It's very anti-family. Remember, anti-family is anti-wealth. Anti-family is anti-wealth, and it's also anti-black. So if you want to destroy black wealth, just keep destroying black families. If you want to destroy black families, keep destroying black culture. If you want to destroy black culture, keep destroying the black male. And that's kind of what's been happening. They've been destroying the black male systematically in a lot of ways. Even back in the 60s, Dan Rather, I was watching a documentary about Dan Rather, the great newsman, and he talked about how Vietnam War, most of the guys in the platoon were mostly black, a lot of black males. And so I just think it just goes way back, just in terms of what people have kind of done to us. So long story short, I remember just going back to the self-esteem thing. I remember the deal was like, I was supposed to pay a bunch of money. Again, I'm a very logical thinker, right? I'm a mathematician. So 2 + 2 is always going to be 4 to me. So the deal was you pay us $600 or $700, which is more money than I had at the time. I did not have a lot of money to burn like that. And they were like, pay us a bunch of money. And then for 6 weeks, we're going to make your life a living hell. And then when you're done, and I was like, well, what do I get when I'm done? They're like, well, you get to be one of us. And I'm like, so I get accepted. So I'm paying you money and letting you torture me, letting you ruin my life and my grade point average and only God knows what. For what? For the esteem of knowing that I can be part of your group? Well, yeah. You get to be one, you get to be a Q dog or an alpha or whatever, right? No disrespect to the fraternities, but it did not compute to me. And I was like, wait, so I get to be your friend, but I'm already your friend. I already know you. I see you. I say hi to you. I don't need to wear the same colors as you for us to be cool. Like, we don't have to wear the same colors. I really don't even really want to see you much more than I already do. So where's the benefit? Where's the win? Where's the ROI? I saw no ROI. The only ROI I saw was You get to wear the jacket and be part of the group. And I saw that more as a self-esteem thing. And what I really found was interesting was I was able to save a lot of money because my self-esteem was already pretty much intact. Sure, I didn't have everything figured out. There were some things I had fears like everyone else. I had, challenges and hurdles and hills I had to climb, but I was very comfortable being by myself and very comfortable being who I was. Yeah, I know I'm not the coolest guy in the party, but I don't want to be the coolest guy in the party because the coolest guy in the party looks stupid to me sometimes. You're acting stupid so that you can be the coolest guy in the party, and that's still true. It doesn't matter. Even now, 30 years later, the internet is just a big high school where people want to be the coolest instead of being being the person that has the most substance. People want to impress you by likes and shares and clicks and views, and they do really embarrassing things, really humiliating things, degrading things, goofball, idiotic things to get likes and shares and views. And that, to me, is not a win for you. In my opinion, a win is when, if I want to impress you, maybe I impress you with my substance. I want to impress you with what's in my brain to say, look at how well I know finance. Let me help you. Or I want to impress you by helping change your life or say something that's really profound for you that's going to benefit you. That's meaningful to me. Me getting you to pay attention to me because I did the best TikTok dance, or if I'm a woman, I'm showing lots of booty and I get lots of likes and shares for that. That to me is indicative of a deeper self-esteem problem that's very, very costly to you. So what I'm saying to you is that going back and I'll finish up on those studies in terms of how it can affect our girls, but it affects our boys as well, is that people that have their self-esteem intact don't have to engage in these horrific exchanges with the world to get these false senses of validation from other people, right? Like a little girl who's raised with full confidence, full self-esteem is not going to keep investing her body into ratchet, disgusting, disease-ridden men just so that she can feel a little bit of love. She's already got love. She's got a big stock of, she's wealthy. She's wealthy. She's emotionally wealthy already. Let me know if you follow what I'm saying. I'm talking about wealth. Do y'all understand that I'm talking about wealth here? I hope you get what I'm saying, because I know I sound like I'm not talking about wealth, but I really am. If you're wealthy with love, then you're not love starved. If you're love starved, then you go and you are giving things away that are valuable so that you can get the thing that you need. Do you understand? So the children, here's the thing. I think that the best job we can do for our parents, or sorry, as parents, not for our parents, as parents, is to make sure our children are not starved of the things that they need. So they don't have to go buy these things by giving away things that are very valuable, starting with money. People will give money away. Oh, I'll spend, I just made 300,000. And instead of using the 300,000 to build generational wealth, I want to spend 300,000 getting this dumbass European car from a bunch of white people who don't even like me, just so I can feel better about myself. Now I'm somebody because I'm driving this overpriced car that's declining, depreciating in value every single mile that I drive it. Right. Or I'm going to go and spend my money at the club and throw it around and put it in stripper thongs so I can be the coolest guy in the room, even though I look like Bozo the Clown right now. I look stupid because I'm throwing away my kids' generational wealth. Or you can just keep going on. Going back to the civil rights movement. No disrespect, but I never understood this idea that I'm going to go and get beat upside the head sitting at a white man's lunch counter, begging him to take my money. I saw this picture of the great James Baldwin, and he was standing in front of an ice cream shop that was owned by a white guy, and the white guy was peeking out the window like, who is this Negro in front of my ice cream shop, and why is he taking a picture here? And at the top of the ice cream shop door, it said, this is the colored entrance, right? So they had an entrance for colored people, an entrance for white people, and there's some white liberal guy who's doing commentary on the picture. And he talks about the contrast in the picture, and I got to put it on my Instagram, the video up, because I got to go find it. But he's basically saying, like, look at the contrast in this picture. He says, here we have James Baldwin, one of the great literary minds of his generation, who is being dehumanized because he's standing in front of this sign where they won't let him in because of the color of his skin. Right? It was something like that. Like here's this great man, this giant of a man, James Baldwin, and he's being dehumanized by the fact that this ice cream shop has a colored only door and a whites only door. And I was like, no, he's not being dehumanized. Why does he have to go eat the white man's ice cream anyway when he's probably going to spit in it? What would make you think, how in the hell does if he's so powerful, what in the world makes us think that he would hand over his humanity, his the right to dehumanize him to a person who clearly is not his friend? There is nothing beneficial about him being allowed to walk through the front door of another man's ice cream shop and give him all his money. In my view, the sign didn't dehumanize him. It only dehumanizes you if something inside of you makes you feel that in order for you to be a complete human being, you have to go inside this bigot's ice cream shop. I don't want to go in his ice cream shop. I don't. He can't take nothing away from me because I don't even want what he got. In order for somebody to take something from you, you have to give it to them in the first place. In order for them to take something from you, they have to at least have something that you desire. And when you desire things, you have to understand, why do I desire these things? And let me tell you, there's a trap. It's a trap. It's a trap. When you desire things, that makes you beholden to the people or the entities that control the thing that you desire. So that's why the Buddhists are among the smartest people on the planet, because if you know anything about Buddhism, which I don't know very much, but one thing I do know is that they do have one principle that pretty much says you should desire nothing. That desiring nothing is one of the keys to freedom. So I'm not saying you shouldn't desire anything. That's your choice, but you got to be real careful about falling in this trap of hungering for something, lusting for something, wanting something, especially when the thing that you want is coming from people who are gonna extract a high rent in order for you to have that thing. So you either A, have to train yourself not to want it, or B, if you do want it, you better get your own supply. So that little girl, she either, if she feels like she needs to be loved by a thug in order to feel complete, in order for her self-esteem to be intact, I need to be one of Future's 18, the rapper Future. I need to be one of his 18 babies mamas in order for me to feel loved and complete. And Future says, sure, just let me inject my dirty penis in your body and give you every disease I have and then abandon you and your child and traumatize the both of you. Sure, I'll give you that in exchange for your self-esteem. If she feels that way, that's a problem. That's a deficit. That's a deficiency. And so to me, that deficiency will be resolved by either A, having plenty of love, of stockpile of love and support from somebody that really cares about her, like her dad. Your dad is, the dads are so important. I mean, we're supposed to be that one man that loves you and will die for you and isn't asking for something from you. So you either have a stockpile of that love and support, or she's got to be in a position where she's convinced herself, no, I don't want what you got. I don't need that. I don't need that thing from you. If I need it, I don't need it from you. So if James Baldwin needs ice cream that bad, that he's got to go into a racist man's ice cream shop just to feel like a human being or just to have ice cream, that would be a psychological deficiency on his part. That's a self-esteem issue. If I'm talking to James Baldwin, I say, let's go get some ice cream somewhere else. There's a Black-owned ice cream shop down the block. Or maybe, ice cream is really going to make us fat. So maybe we should go eat a salad instead, right? That's what I'm thinking, right? And I really encourage you to sort of process these things because those emotional deficiencies, those psychological shortcomings that we're raised with, that self-esteem issue, that drives a lot of people being able to take things from Black people. Like I can point to 1,000 examples. I'm going to try not to point to too many because my brain will explode. I'll start talking all day. But even when I look at guys, I see guys that go on, anybody seen Vlad TV? Vlad TV, right? How many of y'all know about Vlad TV? I've been on Vlad TV several times. I've talked to Vlad on the phone. I did all that, right? And I really am fascinated by how many of these poor little desperate men, who maybe were rappers from the 90s or people that that the world's kind of forgotten about. And they're so desperate for attention that they'll go on Vlad TV's show and they literally will admit to crimes they committed 25 years ago. Like they'll literally be like, yeah, me and Diddy was in the club and we decided to grab a couple of hoes and go and rape them both that night. No, I'm playing, but no, really, like, or I shot him. I died. Well, how many people did you kill? I don't know, probably about 15, 20. I shot so many. I probably shot Pac. I just forgot that I did it. Just literally, and they incriminate themselves. And I'm like, wow. So prison, that's a pretty high price to pay for you to get your internet clout. Like that's what that is. That's an emotional deficiency that's being fed at a very high price to you. So remember, when you're paying a price, you're not just paying with money. That's what I want you to understand. Sometimes you pay a price with something that money can't buy. And really, one of the things I think I might have done right is I don't let people waste my most valuable commodities. I'm not talking about my money. My money's not the most valuable thing I have. I have 1,000 things that are more valuable than money, but just things like time. I don't, if someone important wants to talk to me and someone thinks I'm supposed to talk to this person because they're so important or they're on, they're mainstream famous or something. My question is like, well, why would I want to talk to that person? Well, because he was on the hit TV show, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, so this person's important because white people put him on TV. No, that because what I'm doing over here is the most important work I could be doing anywhere. Like talking to my people about wealth and building our families and our communities for the future. That's really what's important. His reality show on Bravo, that just paid him a bunch of money, but that doesn't make it important. See, you got to stop believing that somebody getting paid lots of money to do a job means that they're doing an important job. Getting paid lots of money to do a job does not make the job important. It just means you got a lot of money to do it. And I'm happy for you. But your importance, your significance in the world has to come down to whether or not you're doing meaningful work for meaningful people, meaningful work for a meaningful purpose. You got a big gun and you're aiming it at the right target. If you got a big gun, you aim at the wrong target, then it's a wasted bullet. If you have a little gun and you aim it at the right target, it's wasted. You want a big gun aimed at the right target. That means you're doing meaningful work for meaningful people. You're applying your energy in a meaningful way. So that's why I tell you to go back to the basics, right? I just really don't understand who told us that the job of a mother wasn't the most important job on the planet. That's the most important job anywhere because if mothers weren't doing their jobs, society would crumble. We'd be raising a whole nation full of serial killers. So motherhood is actually a more important job than almost any job I can think of. And the second most important job would be fatherhood. But for some reason, somebody got us all twisted up and had us thinking that somehow going to that white man's factory every day was the most important use of your time. And I vehemently disagree with you. I vehemently disagree. It might be important for him. Sure, he's building family wealth. He's building generational legacy and everything off your labor. Sure, that's fine. But I don't think that's more important than the time you spend with your own kids. I really don't. And I'm not judging how you spend your time. I understand we have limitations and restrictions and things like that. But I just encourage you, to figure out what your standard needs to be and meet the damn standard. And then don't just meet the standard for yourself, meet it for your children, because I don't think we're meeting the standard for our little girls. That's why they're chasing after some of these raggedy guys. I really do. I'm really fascinated in terms of learning how critical my role is as a father to the self-esteem of my girls. There's something that we give girls, and I think that we understate how important that is because we're so accustomed to the girls not having a father. But I say, well, what if the majority of all the boys didn't have a mother? Are we saying that mothers wouldn't be important? Would we have a normal society if most boys did not have their mother in the house with them? I don't think we would. I really don't. So I think that when you see things happening that almost seem like bastardizations of Black culture, or just extreme disruptions in terms of Black society, Black relationships, choices, I'm the guy that would be curious, like Diddy or Cassie, what made you so attracted to Diddy? What made you think that this pretty gay rapper is an important man? Is it because he had lots of money? Is that what it was? Like, what if Diddy made the same amount of money as the guy at Burger King? But he was still dancing and wearing shiny suits and still a great rapper. Well, he wasn't a great rapper, but still but still like charisma and all that. But he was making like $5.95 an hour. Would that have been your man? Would you have really endured, all this? I'm not judging the choice. I agree. I think it was a scary situation that she was in, but I really wonder about these things. And I wonder like what's really happening here that will make us even think that would be a good life for you. Is it just the money? And because I can tell you as a person who thinks about money all the time, and I can tell you, when you do what I do, you end up as a professor thinking about money and on levels and layers that you can't even possibly imagine. It goes so much deeper than you think. I just want you to understand that money is not as important as you think sometimes. and money can be a massive distraction. Money really is a drug. Money, the drug of money makes you high. And when you're high, you can end up doing things that don't make any sense. And in fact, I'm going to talk about that a little bit later in the portfolio power play, because right now you're in the middle of a booming stock market, which is going to create a lot of what they call irrational exuberance, which is a lot of greed. And so that is when the scammers come out. So people will be releasing the fake Bitcoins again and all that stuff, or the crappy cryptos. There's going to be a lot of IPOs of companies that are not worth what they're worth. During the previous boom, you had these things called SPACs, special purpose acquisition companies, which weren't worth what they were pretending to be, and people were paying money for these SPACs. So this changes the dynamics of the entire economy when everyone's sort of feeling excited, because right now everyone's getting FOMO because they're reading all the headlines about the Dow hitting record highs and Bitcoin hitting another record high and all these other things, and they don't want to miss out. So they jump in and they don't know what they're doing, and they end up getting burned. So that's what we're going to talk about later on today. If you want to join us for the portfolio power play, here is a link to the private Zoom. I'll put it inside here. And if you're not invited to Money in the Morning yet, our economic awareness training, just get on the text list, text the word morning to 87948. So you can text morning to the number 87948, and I'll send you an invitation. And the portfolio power play, I'm going to put the link right here in the chat if you guys want to join me later on today at 1 p.m. Eastern. So let me see here. Let me pop this in the chat really quick. And then what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and finish this up in a second, because today's my anniversary and I shouldn't be like Mr. Workaholic on the day I got married. So, and then my wife's birthday is right after that. So I got Mother's Day, my daughter's birthday, my wife's birthday, and my wedding anniversary all in the same month. So, I got 2 daughter birthdays, right? So I got so much crap that happens in the month. It's in May. It's crazy. So it's really hard. I have a hard time keeping up with names and dates, or like anniversaries and stuff. So pray for me. All right. So anyway, let me finish reading these studies in terms of how that setting that standard can make a big difference. Okay. Yeah. Did I switch the portfolio power play to 1? Yeah, it's 1 p.m. Eastern, Natasha. I think I had to move it back to 1 because the other time, for whatever reason, didn't work. But there's the link right there. And you can click on that and you can join. All right, so a couple more things I want to mention before we bounce out. And again, we'll be back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. So feel free to join us. Just text the word morning to 87948. One thing that they say, surprise, surprise, is according to this study by the Institute for Family Studies, they said a father's involvement can set high standards for how a daughter expects to be treated in relationships. Research shows that daughters who have close communicative relationships with their fathers are less likely to engage in risky sexual behavior and are more likely to have fulfilling, long-lasting marriages. These daughters often have higher self-esteem and body image satisfaction, which are crucial for healthy relationships. Also, in terms of academic and career choices, fathers play a crucial role in their daughters' academic and career decisions. Studies indicate that daughters who receive mentoring and support from their fathers are more likely to pursue ambitious career paths and are often influenced positively by their father's career choices. This support fosters independence and confidence, which are beneficial in all areas of life, including relationships. Also, in terms of negative outcomes, they said the absence of a father figure or a poor father-daughter relationship can lead to adverse outcomes such as depression, anxiety, and early sexual activity. Conversely, daughters with positive father figures are less likely to face these issues and more likely to develop healthy, supportive relationships with their partners. So shout out to and by the way, if you don't see that link to join the Portfolio Power Play, one other way you can get access, I'll send this out in a little bit. Text the word stock, STOCK, to 87948. If you text stock to 87948, you'll get a link from me right after this class, and I'll invite you guys in. So text stock to 87948. I'll also mention a couple stocks I'm buying later on today when we talk. All right. So what I really see here is, first off, I want to applaud fathers that are setting a standard for their kids, period, and their daughters especially. I'm proud of you. I love you so much because of the fact that you are the fabric that's holding the community together. We need our strong masculine men to do this, because unfortunately, as Malcolm X used to talk about, America tries to make the black man into a little boy. So when I see rappers behaving in very childish ways, it reminds me of the fact that there are people that use their money to convince black males, grown black men, to behave like children. I saw the rapper Cameron on CNN, pretty much acting like a kid, because there's no pressure for them to grow up. So they're very irresponsible, very sloppy, very ignorant. And he's old. I think he's old enough to be a grandfather. I want to say he's almost 50 years old. Diddy is over 50, right? And engaged in the same shenanigans that he was engaged in when he was 25 years old. A 52-year-old is not supposed to behave like a 25-year-old. That's not culturally normal, but it seems normal because we financially reward it. So sometimes when things are financially incentivized, that makes us automatically and unfairly and incorrectly believe that that is the right way to approach life, that that's the right way to exist. And it's not. So thank you to the men that understand that. And then also I want to say thanks to all the mothers that really help facilitate that child-father relationship. Because one of the things I believe is that from what I've read, I read about the science of bonding and oxytocin, which is the chemical in your brain that bonds you to other people. Mothers have a very natural bond with the children because oxytocin production in your brain during pregnancy connects you to the child. That's why when the baby comes out, the mother's already instantly bonded. With the father and the child, the bond has to be constructed, right, through having them spend time together, facilitating that, right? The mother kind of saying like, hey, spend time with your father, especially if the partnership doesn't last, you have to kind of push that and have them spend time together and do things together, and then they'll naturally become more connected. If the mother is resistant, or if the mother is has issues with the father or is disrespectful of the father, it's very hard for the father to step in and form a relationship with the child. Because I don't know about y'all, tell me if you agree, give me a yes or no. Anybody my mother didn't respect wasn't gonna get my respect. Tell me if you get that. Tell me if you agree with that. Anybody, if my mama, if I was gonna meet some man and my mother's like, he ain't nothing but a dirty liar. He a damn fool. He's an idiot. I'm not, and I'm 9 years old. I'm loyal to my mother 100%, period. So you bring this guy in front of me and you've been talking crazy about him, or even if you're subtly doing it, even if it's subconscious, right? Or somebody says his name and you go, yeah, we'll see what he does. Oh, that's a cue. That's a clue. And I want y'all to understand this. Pay attention now. My mother did not do this, but it happened. It's a true story. I met my father, my biological father, for the first time when I was 14 years old. So my uncle took me to his house. My parents did not know that I was being taken to my biological father's house. I come to the door. He's standing there, and I looked at him, and it was really shocking because I'd never seen another man who looked like me like that. He looked a lot. I said, wow. So he gave me a hug, and it was one of those real heavy hugs, like, son, oh my God, good to see you, son, that kind of thing. And I didn't hug him with the same intensity because I'm 14 and I didn't feel the same, I didn't feel the same way. Hadn't spent years away from my son. I was just a 14-year-old, a freshman. So I'm sitting there in the living room and I'm talking to my grandmother, which was his mother, was sitting in there. I had an uncle sitting in there who was the brother of my father, and then my father sitting there. And this was actually, and now that I think about it, I think he got there like a little bit later. That's what, because when I first got there, I think he wasn't there. And I remember they were talking about him and they said something real subtle. They said, yeah, well, one day, his name was Boyce, like mine. They said, yeah, but Boyce will get it together one day. And when they said that said to me, okay, so that means my father does not have it together. It was that one little slick little sentence, right? And then we were sitting there, and then my father's sitting there, and he says, yeah, one day I'm gonna get me a Maserati. And I remember just looking at him, and I instantly had like almost no respect for him because I'm listening to this. And maybe I'm different. Maybe I assume I was probably a little bit different. Maybe I am a little more perceptive, a little more aware of things. I don't know. But I was like, this dude does not seem like he's not what I thought. Like, I was hoping I'd have some dad who was doing amazing things that I could be proud of. I did not see that with him, right? And it was accurate. He was on drugs. He was, in the streets doing whatever. And at that point, the respect was kind of gone, And so really what I would say to you is that you have to facilitate those relationships, and it's really to the benefit of the kid. It's not for your benefit. You may hate him, but that kid needs somebody that's gonna care about them without wanting something in return, because if that's not there, then she's going to look for that from a lot of other men who are going to expect her to pay a high price. Okay. And they're going to drain her of things that money should not be able to buy, if you know what I mean. So that's my 2 cents. If you want me to package it up and summarize the gist of what we've talked about today, it is basically that healing and emotional health is extremely important for wealth building, because if you are whole emotionally, you don't have to pay and give your wealth away to people that help you fill those gaps. Do you understand? Right? You don't have to pay to fill the loneliness gap. Like, think about it, like a man who's lonely, maybe he pays women for sex because he doesn't know how to not be lonely, right? Or a woman whose self-esteem is low, she's giving her body away to men, right? Which is more valuable than money, right? Or maybe you're giving your time and your energy to things that are not beneficial to you. And I know white folks, I believe that with racism, if you read Dr. Claude Anderson books like Black Labor, White Wealth, which everybody should really read, it explains how during slavery that the number one goal of the slave master was to keep the slave's self-esteem really low. They wanted to make sure that you were hardworking and very loyal, but they did not want you to have a lot of confidence in yourself. Because if you have too much confidence in yourself, then you, by God, might gasp, actually try to compete with white people. And they did not want you competing with the white man, but they wanted you to serve him, right? So ultimately, I believe you can compete with anybody. I believe you should serve your family first, and then serve your community after your family, and then serve yourself after you serve your community, serve your family, serve yourself. Take care of all three. And I think that will get you to where you are able to build wealth, because you're not giving it all away to other people who are doing things for you that you don't actually need in the first place. So anyway, all right. So couple quick things. So today we're going to do the portfolio power play at 1. I'll mention some stocks that I'm buying during that time. Also, I mentioned to you all that I wanted to, since you had asked me about other specialized topics like estate planning, stock options, real estate, stuff like that, I wanted to do it in a way where you could form healthy economic habits. That's the goal. That's the goal of economic awareness training. That's why we do it 7 days a week, is because I want you to get in the habit every day of thinking about your economics. So what I wanted to create, in addition to Money in the Morning, was something called Money in a Minute. And that's literally where if you want to learn, for example, estate planning, I would send you out via text message like some sort of short lesson that you can learn in less than 2 minutes on estate planning. And then you would get one of those every single day for maybe 30, 45 days. And then by the time you're done, you would have a basic understanding of estate planning. And then there will be options for you to do more if that's what you want to do. Same thing with stock options, stock market investing, real estate. We can go on and on and on, and pretty much, sort of create whatever you want. So that's almost done, and I'll reach out to you guys about that. There will be a fee, but we'll discount it substantially for those of you that are in our economic awareness training, and that should be ready probably by the end of the week. Okay, so I'll let you guys know when that's ready. And if you're not already on the text list for Money in the Morning or economic awareness training, make sure you text the word morning, MORNING, to 87948. And also the book that we were covering for a big part of this class is my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, which you can get a copy at our Black Wealth Mastery store, which is at drboycebooks.com. So it's drboycebooks.com. So take care, everybody. Have a good day. Thank you so much for hanging out. It was great. And maybe I'll see you guys later on this afternoon. And thank you for your well wishes on the anniversary. I appreciate that.